The story of a manga artist who was imprisoned by a strange Yandere girl. Volume 3. By Kitade Ryuma and Hozumi Moguri. Translated by Sound Destiny at Travis Translations. Audiobook by Masquerade at Masquerade Audiobooks. Prologue. Late November. When it comes to winter, it's all about the kotatsu. Time flies, and this kotatsu has been with us for 3 years now. Just one more page. Just one more page. One day in the early afternoon, I sit cross-legged in a chair, my pen racing across the graphics tablet. The serialization of the story of a manga artist kidnapped by an unknown high school girl has been quite well received and, as long as I don't mess something up, we should definitely reach the 3-year mark without getting cancelled. As usual, she's here by my side today. With her legs under the kotatsu, she's peeling a mandarin orange, the peels radiating outwards, sitting across from me. Come to think of it, she's already a high school senior. The last year of being a high school girl, right? Just a few more months left. I suddenly realized. 3 years for a manga artist approaching his 30s and 3 years of high school for a girl have very different meanings. Has she had a fulfilling youth with a somewhat awkward manga artist like me? Has the time we've spent together been beneficial for her? Does she think about her future and career path? I even worry about things like that. Here. As if she noticed my gaze, she offered me a freshly peeled mandarin orange. Thank you. But right now, I need to focus on my manuscript. I'll eat it later. I shake my head slightly. I don't have time to be worrying about others. I need to focus on my manuscript. Haruka-san will be here for a meeting soon. I'd like to finish my rough draft before she arrives. Is that so? She sounds a bit disappointed and withdraws the mandarin orange. Afterward, she slouched on the kotatsu's tabletop. Wearing a grey sweater, her well-endowed chest, with a shape that goes beyond what's reasonable, distorts seductively. I placed the mandarin orange on that chest and looked at her from below. Growth spurts are amazing. I gaze up at the ceiling. Her bust has continued to grow since we first met. It's almost divine. No, it's somewhat eerie. Even the peeled mandarin orange looks slightly otherworldly. To put it in a metaphor, it's like a mochi pounded for a dark New Year's ceremony. Sometimes, readers send in surveys like, "Isn't her chest exaggerated?" There are no high school girls like that in real life. I'd like to think my art style is relatively consistent. But it's not like I haven't intentionally made changes since the start of the serialization. I had been gradually developing the chest of the heroine in my manga to match the passage of time within the story. Well, I'm actually keeping it rather modest compared to reality. There might be some readers who don't like it, but the majority seems to be in favor of it, so I plan to continue gradually developing her chest. Riro riro roro roro. As I was thinking about this, Konata lowered her head and began to slowly loosen the clusters of mandarins on her chest with just her tongue. The red tongue caressed the orange grains. Before long, the tongue entered the center of the mandarin, clasping it between the upper lip. I'm not entirely sure, but if I were to upload this scene to a video-sharing social network, it would probably go viral. The mysterious attempt ended in failure. The mandarin rolled out of this side's mouth and disappeared under the kotatsu. Haha, I guess that's not the most proper way to eat it. I smiled. Well, I heard that strengthening your tongue can give you a smaller face effect. Konata mumbled a bit shyly and disappeared into the kotatsu. Whether it's cooking, laundry, or socializing, Konata has gradually overcome various weaknesses. The fundamental clumsiness hasn't changed much. But, I like these unexpected and odd aspects of Konata. It serves as inspiration for creativity, and if she were too perfect, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on. Sawawa wawa wawa. Ofu. Suddenly, there was a ticklish sensation on the thigh. My body shuddered. Ko Konata, why are you fondling my thigh? While I seek inspiration for creativity, I'm not looking for this kind of physical stimulation. The mandarin ran over there. Konata said in a muffled voice. No, it didn't come over to my side. I definitely felt the mandarin hit my leg. It's hard to spot mandarins with their camouflage colors. And the kotatsu infrared is also orange. I see. Well, for a moment, I almost believed it. but that's still quite a stretch. But I think it has more camouflage effect than people wearing camouflage clothes in Akihabara. Konata said it matter-of-factly. And then, that ticklish sensation gradually moved up toward the groin. The comparison isn't right. No. This is seriously not okay. Calm down. What if Haruka-san saw this scene and got the wrong idea about what we're doing? I've been working so hard to maintain a wholesome image, and it'll all go down the drain. I reached into the kotatsu and grabbed Konata's arm to stop her. Today, Konata is acting strangely. Well, she's always a bit strange, but she hadn't been engaging in such extreme physical contact recently. I wonder if something changed in her mindset. It's okay. Why? Because mandarins are a symbol of prosperity. With a puff, Konata emerged from between my legs from under the kotatsu, taking a breath as she spoke. That wasn't really an answer, was it? Oh, wait, the mandarin is right here. I said this with a straight face, picked up the mandarin near Konata's side and placed it on the table. Konata crawled out of the kotatsu without saying a word, facing away from me. Then, she sat on top of my crossed legs. The warmth from Konata's skirt, warmed by the kotatsu, passed through my jeans, blending with my body temperature. Definitely, something's off. Konata occasionally plays pranks on me, but she's usually quite well behaved during work. Konata, is there something you want to tell me? Konata glanced at me out of the corner of her eye, then turned her attention back to the front. Clearly, there's something on her mind. But I won't rush her. After living together in a semi-cohabitation-like arrangement for nearly 3 years, I've started to understand her rhythms, or at least, I get a sense of them. Konata's rhythms are more extreme than those of an average person. Right now, it seems to be one of those slower moments. I rested my chin on Konata's shoulder, continuing my work in silence, waiting for her to speak. By the time I finished drawing the draft, as if on cue, the doorbell rang. In the end, Konata didn't say anything. If she's troubled, I want to be there to support her, but I also understand that forcing her to talk isn't the right approach. Well, I guess there are days like this. Oh, it looks like Haruka-san is here. I gave up my seat to Konata and quickly made my way to the front door. I slipped on my shoes and pushed the door open. Haruka-san, welcome back. Sensei. Congratulations. It's a big opportunity. As soon as I opened the door, Haruka-san grabbed my hand, her coat's hem fluttering in the chilly wind. What? A big opportunity? Is there something I missed? The special anniversary color pages are still ahead. Oh, sorry. Please come in. I was overwhelmed by her high-energy mode, contrasting with Konata, as I ushered her inside. My apologies. Oh, Konata is here too. I'm sure it's news that you'll be happy to hear. She glanced at Konata in the kitchen while taking off her shoes and coat at the entrance. I had a feeling. The stars have aligned well this month. Konata nodded in agreement while washing the mandarins in the sink. Even though it has been more than 2 years since they met, she still seems to have some mysterious sense of rivalry with Haruka-san. Well, I've just finished the draft. What should we do? Thank you. That's a good question. It's related to the future of the work, so should we take a look at the draft first? Sure, please go ahead. Oh, I'll make some tea. That would be appreciated. Haruka-san hung her coat on her arm and entered the room. By the time I returned with 3 cups of tea, she had already finished reading the draft. Thank you for the draft. So, can I talk about the big opportunity now, or rather, I can't wait to tell you. Sitting across from me, Haruka-san took a sip of her tea, paused for a moment, and then continued. Her excitement seemed to have subsided somewhat, but she still spoke a bit quickly. Konata, who was sitting to my left, clenched her fists tightly on her lap. It felt as if she was sharing in my nervousness. Please, go ahead and tell us. Honestly, I'm incredibly curious too. That's true. I'm sorry for the somewhat misleading introduction. To be straightforward, there's a possibility of turning your work into an anime. Really? I leaned forward involuntarily. Haruka-san's words were completely unexpected. I had anticipated the possibility of merchandise at best. Yes. Your work is the best-selling in our romantic comedy genre, and it's in tune with the current trends. She nodded deeply and continued. I'm delighted. But the word possibility means it's not confirmed yet, right? Yes, that's the situation. However, there are a few issues that need to be resolved for the anime adaptation. Issues? Yes. It's just that the investors in the anime have somewhat ambivalent feelings about your work. Ambivalent feelings? I swallowed hard and nodded in agreement. Yes. I believe it will eventually become apparent even if I try to keep it secret, so I apologize for saying this, but originally, the next anime adaptation was supposed to be a sequel to Euphoria. I see. Well, that makes sense when you think about it. I nodded in understanding. I didn't find it particularly rude. I, myself, had naturally assumed that the next anime adaptation slot for Flare Comics would be Euphoria. That's why I was surprised by the anime adaptation discussion. Yes. The investors, they were keen on producing a sequel to Euphoria, which they believed would generate a guaranteed profit. However, it seems that Ario-sensei has some concerns about the recent quality of the Euphoria anime and believes it might be better to take a more relaxed production period without rushing. Well, that's very much like Ario-sensei. For most authors, the fear of losing the opportunity for an anime adaptation due to missed timing would deter them from making such requests. But Ario-sensei's absolute confidence in his ability to maintain both serialization and popularity over time allowed him to make such demands. So, in essence, they want to use his work as a way to buy time? That seems to be the case. Konata, while saying this, took a mandarin into her mouth and pursed her lips. If you look at it from a pessimistic perspective, it might not be far from the truth, but anime adaptations often happen like this. On a positive note, you could say that luck has come to Ario-sensei. Haruka-san replied without much emotion. Whether it's a delay tactic or anything else, I'm happy. So, the issue at hand is convincing those investors, right? I said this, steering the conversation back on track. Yes. We lack the material to persuade the investors, so we need evidence to present that your work is superior to Euphoria. But, since Euphoria and the story of a manga artist kidnapped by an unknown high school girl are completely different genres, we can't compare their content. In that case, should we consider reader surveys, sales figures, or such objective indicators? Superior. Are there any particular elements that make my work stand out? In the first place, the genres of Euphoria and the story of a manga artist kidnapped by an unknown high school girl are so different that it's hard to make a direct comparison. So, would reader surveys and sales figures be the way to go? I took a moment to think and then asked. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. I understand the situation. But, if they say we should compete based on total sales numbers, it's impossible, especially against Euphoria, which is one of the top sellers in the entire manga industry. Comparing my work to Euphoria, which has one of the highest sales in the entire manga industry, would be incredibly unfair. Of course, that's impossible. However, considering that Euphoria has been running for a long time, and its sales have stabilized, while your work is currently gaining momentum, we might be able to compare sales figures of the latest volumes. We'll also put in extra promotional efforts on our end. Haruka-san spoke in an encouraging tone. Thank you. However, even with those considerations, it's honestly tough as it is. I don't have detailed data, but in terms of my work, I've never surpassed Ario-sensei in reader surveys or in book sales, not even once, I think. My gaze naturally lowered. While the primary readers of my work are male, Euphoria has garnered a significant number of dedicated female readers who actively participate in surveys. Book sales figures might not show such a significant gap, but I believe I'm still losing by about 10,000 to 20,000 copies. As someone who's working with Ario-sensei and other authors, I feel inadequate in my position, but what you're saying is true. So, that leads to the discussion of future developments, sensei. Until now, you've mostly adopted conservative plots to get the serialization on track, right? Yes, that's correct. But if we maintain the status quo, we can't compete with Euphoria. Is that what you're getting at? I responded, understanding the implication behind Haruka-san's words. Yes, of course, we shouldn't go too far from the norm, but I believe that with the current conservative plot, we might not be able to compete with Euphoria. Naturally, this involves risks, so I won't push you into it. If you're not comfortable with it, please don't hesitate to tell me. I will continue the negotiations for your work's anime adaptation along the current path, and even if that ends in disappointment, remember that anime adaptation isn't everything in the world of manga. Haruka-san said this with a serious expression. She's the kind of person who would never use mere pleasantries. If I were to say no, she would undoubtedly follow that policy wholeheartedly. Is that so? I took a sip of tea that had just reached the right temperature and looked down, contemplating. Challenges naturally come with risks. Getting a serialization is tough, and making it a hit is even tougher. Even if you manage to create one-hit work, there's no guarantee that the next one will be successful. Introducing bold developments that might risk shortening the lifespan of a valuable hit work requires a considerable amount of courage. In fact, there are countless examples of works that have stalled due to overly bold and ill-advised developments. That's why manga artists often stick to the safe path. Even if they're criticized by readers for dragging things out, even if they personally understand that their work is dying, as long as the sales figures permit it, they continue drawing out of inertia. In the end, being a manga artist is essentially running a one-person business, and since publishing companies are profit-driven enterprises, this dynamic can easily emerge. Few manga artists can resist the temptation of playing it safe. My work, the story of a manga artist kidnapped by a high school girl, hasn't fallen into that rut just yet. But it's safe to say that it stands at a crossroads. Right now, I'm faced with two paths. I thought I'd be more troubled by this. Even though this is a significant decision for a manga artist, I didn't feel anxious about it. Surprisingly, the conclusion came naturally. Nevertheless, before reaching a decision, there's someone whose opinion I should consider. What do you think? I asked while glancing sideways at Konata. It's your call. If you can do what you want, it's a win no matter who the other party is. Well, I'd be happy if there were more merchandise if it becomes an anime, but that's about it. Konata answered promptly, lifting the cup with an elegant gesture, her left hand supporting its bottom. I see. Well, my decision is made. Haruka-san, can I temporarily retract the submitted work? If we're going to go with a more challenging plot, we need to start preparing now. I made my choice quickly. If this had been a work I'd created purely through my own efforts, I might have hesitated. However, the story of a manga artist kidnapped by a high school girl is a creation that wouldn't exist without her. Therefore, the answer is clear. With her, she won't hesitate in reality or within the manga. For better or worse, she'll take me into an unknown world that defies expectations. Of course, I believed you'd say that, sensei. Let's work on the storyboard to defeat Foria together. Haruka-san enthusiastically leaned forward. Bachi bachi. With a crisp sound, 2 buttons on her chest simultaneously popped off. One hit my forehead and the other bounced off the table and took a dive into the cup. For a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of the edge of her red bra. I quickly averted my eyes. Sorry. I just bought this shirt recently, but it seems like I've put on some extra weight during the winter. Sorry about that. Can I borrow a needle and thread? It's in the first aid kit on that shelf. I pointed to a corner of the room. Despite her age, Haruka-san still. Is it true that breasts continue to grow even after reaching adulthood? Lately, lean meat is more popular than marbled meat, isn't it? Konata crossing her arms and emphasizing her chest with her sweater while speaking something unrelated. I wonder if the fabric can handle the stress. I don't really understand, but I think both are delicious. No matter where I looked, there were large breasts. So, I turned my gaze to the right. On the right, there was a poster of the manga version of herself in a swimsuit on the wall, but it was something I drew, so I could still look at it calmly. After buttoning up her shirt again, Haruka-san left to go back to work. We had discussed the rough direction for the upcoming storyboard. I immediately got back to revising the storyboard after a slightly late lunch she prepared for me, nabe made with napa cabbage. Some time passed and a notification for a call appeared on my laptop. I thought it might be Haruka-san, but to my surprise, a different name appeared. I hastily retrieved my headset from a drawer and connected it to my laptop. Good evening. Long time no see, Ario-sensei. I wasn't sure what to say, so I resorted to a typical greeting. On the webcam, Ario-sensei appeared wearing a white Lolita outfit. Her hair color apparently changed frequently based on her mood, and currently, it was a bright golden hue. Her height and overall appearance made her look like a middle schooler at first glance, but in reality, she was at least in her 20s, around the same age as me. We had a few occasions meet up when she was struggling, and I helped her out a couple of times during that period. However, we haven't had direct conversations for about a year. It's been a while, but more importantly, I heard something. You went all out saying Foria is an outdated work. I'll knock it off its pedestal with my masterpiece. Get ready for a showdown in the absolute territory. Is that true? No, I didn't say anything like that at all. Honestly, I've been feeling unsatisfied. Flare Comics has been too one-sided with Foria, and it's been missing the excitement, you know? I mean, I'm all for comics where the main character is overpowered like in light novels, but the classic formula for shonen manga is all about battles with rivals, right? She crosses her arms and nods to herself, and continues with her forceful way of speaking, seemingly unaware or ignoring whether she's being heard. But unlike Konata and Haruka-san, the chest armor doesn't seem like it's about to burst open, which is somewhat comforting. But can I really be considered as your rival? What? Are you saying you'll beat Foria with your work through surveys or sales? Did you lie to Haruka? Lying to readers? Is that what you're suggesting? Ario-sensei becomes serious all of a sudden. The expression he occasionally shows as a professional is a bit intimidating and many times more enviable. No, it's not a lie. Certainly, I can't afford to be humble now. I will win. Whether I can actually win or not, I have to do it with the intention of winning, or it's pointless. I'll do it as well as Zine or Seo, at least. Even if I end up losing in the end, I want to kill the protagonist at least once. Zine, Seo, character in Foria. I force the words out of my throat. That's the spirit. I'll give it my all too. Oh, my excitement is rising. I briefly thought, maybe it's okay to lose to Omona-sensei, but no, I don't want to. Since you've challenged me, I'll draw such an amazing Foria that can crush your pride and turn it into pig's feed in a blender. Ario-sensei shouts while shadowboxing. I was a bit taken aback by her response. Of course, I understand that her previous statement was a sign of respect in his own way. That was a bit much, wasn't it? Well, if you're not satisfied, try defeating me and seize the opportunity to get an anime adaptation. See ya. Ario-sensei provocatively says this and then disconnects the call. Sorry. Konata. Can I ask you to prepare and store meals for a while? I don't want to lose my concentration midway. Once I say this, I can't stay silent any longer. I may not be a genius like Ario-sensei, but I've managed to survive in the manga industry by clinging to a stone somehow. I should have the power to make a comeback, at least enough to strike back. Understood. Do your best. I nod quietly. Thank you. I pick up my pen again. I have to win. I have to prove to the world that this character, Konata, is so captivating that it deserves to be adapted into an anime. Chapter 1, Destiny. Again today, I can't bring myself to say it. As I watch him earnestly working on his drawing tablet, I fiddle with my smartphone. The diary accumulating under the guise of a memo pad is increasingly eating up the phone's storage. I need to tell him soon. I'm already a third-year high school student. To stay by his side, I must make a decision about my future. I've known what I want to do for quite some time now. I want to attend a manga school. Of course, I don't want to become a manga artist myself. I want to acquire the skills to assist him effectively. What I can do right now is at most cooking for him and cleaning his room. But that's not enough to truly be a part of his life. Being a manga artist is different from a regular job. It's a life completely intertwined with creative work, and you can't separate your personal life from your work. Ultimately, his life is inseparable from manga, so to truly become one with him, I have to step into the realm of creation. However, I don't have anything I want to express myself, so if that's the case, the only path left is to become an assistant. My goal is clear. There are no entrance exams for manga schools, and if I'm not aiming too high for scholarships, there's almost no reason not to get in. Still, I couldn't bring myself to discuss this with him. In comparison to the hurdles he must overcome for his work to be adapted into an anime, my concerns seem insignificant. But I have an issue I must confront as well. Can I persuade my parents? They surely believe that it's only natural for me to go to college. In fact, since most of the students at Sakuraba High School either take regular college entrance exams or use designated school recommendations for further education, the option of not going to college is probably not even a consideration. In such a situation, I have to broach the subject with him, even though he's concerned about appearances, and tell him, unlike regular college graduates, my job prospects will be significantly limited if I attend a manga school, so could you cover the tuition fees? No matter what kind of tension there may be, in the end, I'm financially dependent on my parents and rely on them. I can manage my living expenses through part-time work, but I can't possibly cover the tuition fees, which exceed 6 figures. When it comes to vocational schools, even scholarships can be challenging to obtain. I considered enrolling in a university with a manga program, but in any case, I wouldn't be eligible for scholarships due to our household's annual income. To persuade my parents, I need to let him know in advance that I want to become an assistant and get his acceptance. Vaguely saying, I want to go to a manga vocational school because I want to be an assistant, and saying, I want to go because I have a tentative offer to be an assistant to a professional manga artist with a track record are entirely different in terms of persuasiveness. Parents aside, if I can present such a specific plan for my future, the teachers shouldn't have any objections. By doing that, the probability of indirectly convincing my parents should significantly increase. But is this the right time to say it? During this crucial period when he has to work hard for the anime adaptation? It's inconceivable to burden him with my personal issues during his crucial moment as a manga artist. I wish I had talked to him earlier, but now it's too late. About a year ago, he was going through a tough time stabilizing his serializations, and then when I entered my 3rd year, my school was in exam mode, making it quite challenging to keep up with classes. There was hardly any room for anything else. Should I consider repeating a year? Maybe then, my parents would give in and accept me going to a vocational school. I'm even thinking about such backward ideas. Well, that's not a good idea either. In reality, if I did something like that, he, who celebrated my return to school as if it were his own achievement, would definitely be sad. I wish time would just stop right now. This high school student's moratorium, where everything is allowed while remaining vague. In a position somewhere between a child and an adult, where the kind-hearted him cares about me, I wish I could stay by his side forever. While indulging in such daydreams, I continued to gaze at his earnest profile as he tirelessly worked with his pen. Chapter 1.2, Week 1. What is this? Is such an expression even allowed? Morning. I trembled as I held the latest issue of Flare Comics under the kotatsu. A mixture of awe and a sense of defeat overwhelmed me, as if I had been submerged in a turbid stream. The current issue of Foria seemed, at first glance, to have an unusually drawn-out storyline for a Ryo-sensei. However, any reader with basic comprehension skills would quickly realize that it was a fake-out. After all, manga magazines are typically made from recycled paper, but this issue of Foria is serialized on thin paper similar to tracing paper as a separate supplement, deliberately designed to create a distinct sense of discomfort. After reading the serialization of Foria in the usual way, when I reread it by layering that thin paper, the fake world collapses and the true story emerges. It's a feeling like that. The excitement of gradually layering 2, 3, 4 sheets and reading cannot be expressed electronically. It reminds me of the essential joy of reading manga. It's frustrating not to have enough vocabulary to convey this wonder. To put it in the closest terms, it's similar to Lover-Yu's technique of pushing the boundaries of eroticism in a shonen magazine, but it feels like they've taken it to the next level and inherited it. It has transcended the framework of manga and entered the realm of contemporary art. Not only in terms of manga prowess but also in artistic sensibility, it was a complete defeat. The meticulously calculated composition of the names, the artistic skill to realize that intention, and storytelling that doesn't just end with gimmicks. The meaning of the word, genius, is etched into my heart, not through logic, There has never been a day I regretted becoming a manga artist more than today. If I were just a reader, I could have easily praised the greatness of Foria. Isn't this cheating? Konata glares at this month's issue of Foria before heading to school. Well, there are no rules in the expression of manga. Besides, from what Haruka-san told me, Ario-sensei went to great lengths and personal expense to achieve this. Considering the manuscript fees, I think this alone puts her deep in the red. I shake my head and scroll through my smartphone. On social media, the discussion is dominated by Foria. Both professional manga artists, readers, and critics all shower Ario-sensei with praise. In my frustration, I did some ego surfing and came across a tweet from a reader saying, "Everyone's talking about Foria as if it's the only thing, but let's not forget that Confined JK has some shocking developments too. Someone please remember it's appreciated. But it feels empty. I'm genuinely feeling down. It was clear that it wouldn't be easy to win, but I didn't expect the gap to be this wide. Sigh. I thought I put my all into it. Being a worrier by nature, I had prepared several different endings tailored to the length of the serial in case it gets cancelled, just to be on the safe side. I extracted the best parts, restructured them and stretched them out to create material that I could use for a year without hesitation. I'm not a genius. But I thought that if an ordinary person like me could condense 200 pages of thought into about 20 pages, maybe I could imitate genius to some extent. Perhaps I can't win with the kind of development I've been thinking about. Ario-sensei has both sensibility and logic. I confirmed this as I looked at the latest issue. If there's a way I can win, I guess I need to go back to the basics. The serialization of the story of a manga artist kidnapped by an unknown high school girl probably gained popularity because it's based on my real-life experience, which provides overwhelming authenticity. So, should I do it again? No, there's no room for doubt. I'm holed up drawing manga anyway, so there are no downsides to a life of confinement. Konata, I need a favor. I got up from under the kotatsu and sat cross-legged on the floor. What's this all of a sudden? Konata widened her eyes. Please, kidnap me again. I bowed my head almost to the floor. Are you sure about this? Yeah. The story I've been spinning in my head won't work. I want to get back to basics. Plus, this would be my first time being kidnapped in winter, so there might be some new discoveries. But then again, it's all just for my own convenience. You're busy too. I said it on impulse and then realized it. Konata seems to have a tough time with schoolwork now that she's in her 3rd year. Don't worry. I have time. Winter break is coming soon. Ignoring my concerns, Konata replied immediately. Is that so? Well, then, can I ask you for that favor? I'll buy some things on my way back. In that case, please use my card. As usual, I'll need the receipt. I took the cash card from my wallet on the kotatsu and handed it to Konata. Got it. Konata received it with both hands and headed to school. All right. I'm going to be kidnapped again. I slapped my cheek to re-energize myself. And so, I once again stepped into the nostalgic life of confinement. Section. First, put this on. Just before 7 in the evening, after returning from school, Konata finished washing her hands and gargling, then said this right away. In her hand, she held a cylindrical brown cloth. Is this a neck warmer? I put on the neck warmer as instructed. Yes, it's silk. I'm worried about the collar touching your skin directly. Winter can be dry, so there might be chafing or static electricity. But with this neck warmer, you can solve both concerns at once. Plus, it provides warmth. She answered smoothly. I see, that makes sense. I quickly made a note on my phone. It made my heart feel a bit warm to think that she was really considering me when kidnapping me. During my first kidnapping, I was too scared to think about her true intentions. And here's the collar. It's made of titanium. Konata took the collar from the bag and put it around my neck. For a moment, I felt the hard texture through the fabric, but it quickly became comfortable. This one is made of metal. I remember you mentioning once that if you were to kidnap me in winter, you'd use a wooden collar. I muttered as I recalled past memories. I said wooden at the time because I was asked on the spot. But when I thought about it more, I got worried about the strength of a wooden collar. Besides, wooden collars aren't that easy to find, Konata said while attaching the chain to the collar. I see. It's useful information. Of course, the me in the manga is a reconstruction I've done in my mind. I can't compare to the real me. Naturally, manga involves exaggeration, so things like wearing a neck warmer might make the visual presentation less clear, which is why using a wooden collar in previous issues wasn't a mistake as a form of artistic expression. So, about dinner, since I was out shopping and got back late, is it okay if we have something simple? Of course. If it was too much trouble, you could have bought something. I did think about that, but, it's like a celebration of the reopening of captivity. With that, Konata retreated into the kitchen, then quickly returned with a silver tray in each hand. On the tray were yogurt, jelly, and some kind of supplement that I couldn't quite figure out. This. It brings back memories. I tapped my knee. This is their special, sick person's meal. It might not be very filling for dinner, but it's just right to switch into captivity mode. Lately, Konata has been able to cook normally again. Even now, when I occasionally challenge new recipes, I might make mistakes, but I don't make simple blunders like burning pancakes as I used to. Let's eat. I savored the meal. It wasn't particularly delicious, but I ate it methodically. Itadakimasu. She also dug into the same menu as mine. I appreciate you cooperating in recreating my captive meal, but it's okay for you to eat what you normally want, right? But it doesn't taste good if I'm the only one eating normal food. Konata said that much and continued to eat in silence. I see. Well, can I ask for our regular meals starting from tomorrow? Unlike back then, my health isn't an issue now. Oh, but I understand that preparing a variety of dishes might be a lot of work, so it doesn't have to be anything fancy, okay? As for myself, when I'm busy with creative work, I'm fine with quick meals as long as I get the minimum nutrition. Still, I don't want to involve Konata in the chaotic eating habits of a manga artist. I understand. We finished the meal quickly and I returned to my work. Soon, the night grew. She asked if I wanted her to fill the bath, but I was short on time, so I settled for a quick shower. While I brushed my teeth and did a few things, it was already time to sleep. Konata, see you tomorrow. Oh, what should I do? I can't take you home. With Haruka-san around and to avoid making the cohabitation situation a fait accompli, I tried to have Konata sleep at her family's place as much as possible. However, letting her walk alone on the night streets was worrying me. No, well, in the first place, I'm supposed to be keeping you captive, so you should stay here as usual, right? What about the bathroom? Have you forgotten about when you were already captive? Konata furrowed her eyebrows, appearing a bit upset. Oh, right. I've been too complacent. I nodded and rubbed my eyes with my fingers. Get it together. Oh, I'll be careful. Ha. Konata let out a small sigh and headed to the bathroom. She probably went to get the futon stored in the storage space. Calm down, me. Konata has stayed over at my place a fair amount even after the captivity. I laid out my own futon, which had been folded up in the corner of the room, by the window and took a deep breath. Occasionally, when she had stayed over because we ended up working late due to collaborative efforts like reference photography for my drawings, we would use the kotatsu as an improvised partition, sleeping at opposite ends of the room. During the previous captivity, there was nothing but a flimsy cardboard divider between us, so compared to that, the kotatsu served as a proper barrier. I'm back. Konata arrives with a futon and a blanket in each arm. She didn't lay the futon by the door but rather circumvented the kotatsu and headed toward me. Wait. I extended my hand as if to stop her. What's wrong? Konata raised an eyebrow, tilting her head. Konata, you're usually on the side with the door, right? You prefer a more realistic captivity, don't you? Compared to before, there are more things in the room, so I need to keep a close watch to ensure you can't escape using tools. So, the kitchen outside the room like before is out of the question, and even on the side of the door inside the room, I might not notice if you're doing something discreet, True, it might be like that if we assume I'm planning to escape. So, let's at least move the kotatsu closer to the edge. This space is too small for 2 people to sleep in. The kotatsu itself already took up a considerable portion of the room's floor area, so it was quite tight. There wasn't enough floor space to lay out 2 futons by the window. Moving furniture frequently increases the risk of neighbors noticing the captivity due to the noise. I see. Besides, making noise at night would be a nuisance to the neighbors. Darn it. I got counted again. The plan for my confinement is as meticulous as if it had been thought out in advance. That's how it is. I nodded, placing the futon on the floor with a thud. But that means, no matter how we lay the futon, they'll overlap by about half. Can we sleep like this? I tried to fine-tune the position of the futon, but there was a physical limitation no matter how I adjusted it. Don't worry. Instead, get some sleep. Even if you're busy, sleep is important, right? Ah, yeah. I lay down on the futon and glanced sideways at her pajamas. They were designed with a black goat motif, featuring a hood and a large pocket around the belly. It was cute, but not overly provocative. Well, compared to summer, there's less exposure, and I've been with Konata for over 2 years now. I should have built up some resistance by now. Okay, with this, it's perfect. What she took out from the pocket was a harness. Or it could also be seen as a big-sized baby carrier. What do you plan to do with that? I had a bad feeling about this and tried to roll to the side to put some distance between us, but I was already by the window. There was no escape. Of course, we'll do it like this. Konata lies down next to me. I thought she was grabbing my collar, but the next moment, we were connected as one with the harness. We were facing each other. I seemed to be treated like a large baby or a body pillow. Hair that emitted a sweet scent after a bath. Long eyelashes were right in front of me, and the soft pressure of her twin peaks against my chest. I'm restraining you to prevent you from making any unauthorized moves while I'm sleeping. Even if I shorten the chain, in this cluttered room, you could reach some kind of tool. I understand the reasoning, but could you at least spare me from this face-to-face position? Why? You're here to watch my actions, right? If we embrace each other, you won't be able to see my hands around your back. There would be a chance for me to resist. I lightly poked the back of her head with my hand. A quick excuse that came to mind, as I couldn't honestly say, because I might lose control of my impulses. That's not entirely unreasonable. Turn your back to me. Konata spoke, removing the harness for a moment. I turned to face the window. The harness was quickly reattached, and I went from being a baby in a baby carrier to adopting a form reminiscent of an instructor during a tandem skydiving. I lay down on my back. Is this not too heavy for you? I was on the lighter side for a man, but it still felt awkward having them underneath me. No problem. I put an extra layer of futon underneath. Konata said while covering us with a blanket. Then, that's fine. I said, trying to find a position for my arms so that I wouldn't inadvertently touch her. There was still something soft on my back, but it was better than facing each other head-on. In this position, physical intimacy was out of the question. The feeling on my back can be thought of as a lust-killer pillow. I squeezed my eyes shut and desperately repeated to myself like a mantra. Now, I'm going to sleep. 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 I repeat it like a spell in my mind. Hamu hamu hamu. Hafu. In an instant, a ticklish sensation raced across the left half of my face, and a strange sound escaped from my lips. Konata. Hey, Konata. Seriously, isn't this a bit too much? What reason could there be to nibble on my earlobe? I tried to resist by moving my head left and right, but I couldn't escape due to the harness. Goats have hearty appetites. Konata said calmly and then stuck her tongue into my ear. This was like real-life ASMR. Yay. It's gross, so stop it. And, come on, goats are herbivores, aren't they? Wait, is this even legal? I'm not a sex offender, am I? This black goat survived the witch's ritual on Walpurgis night and evolved into a carnivorous black goat with magical powers. What a load of nonsense. What a Chinibia play, really. If I were the GM in a tabletop role-playing game, I'd be angry, you know? About 10 minutes later. Have you gained a little weight? I guess she got bored and stopped playing tricks on my ears. Instead, she pinched the flab on my stomach. I haven't changed my daily routine though. I wondered if my metabolism had slowed down. I'm still in my 20s, after all. I'm a bit concerned about manga artists because they often get sick due to sitting and lack of exercise. True. I try to do some light stretching regularly, though. Do you want to go on a diet? Konata said, patting my stomach. Well, I don't eat that much to begin with, so it's hard to restrict my diet, and I'm not one to move around all that much either. If anything, I can do some push-ups or sit-ups. You can just exercise normally outside. I'll go with you. No, I appreciate the sentiment, but isn't it difficult since I'm in captivity? In manga, the main character is sometimes taken for a walk at night like a dog with a leash, but in reality, being taken for a walk by a high school girl in reality would be questionable. Use handcuffs. In winter, you can hide them under long sleeves. They said it with confidence. Handcuffs, it's better than a leash, but if I get stopped by the police, my life is over. How many people in this world would see a scene where a high school girl and an adult man are handcuffed together and immediately assume the high school girl is the criminal? I can only envision a future where my name is exposed nationwide. Isn't that the thrill main attraction? Well, I do imagine everything outside the confinement indoors, so in terms of pursuing realism, it might be necessary to go out while maintaining the captivity state. How about using toy handcuffs? The cheap plastic ones. That way, if a third party sees us, we can pass it off as a joke. Okay. Konata said that and started making takoyaki on my cheek. Then, I'll buy them at a 100 yen store or something. But is there any sport you can do while handcuffed? Ice skating. Konata answers immediately. Ice skating? That sounds like a good winter activity. But can you actually ice skate? I know the theory. Konata answered in a soft voice. So, that means you can't do it, right? I couldn't imagine this clumsy person, with no experience, suddenly becoming a proficient skater. You can teach me. You're from a snowy region, aren't you? Well, just because I'm from a snowy region doesn't mean I can skate. I did skate a bit when I was in elementary school or middle school, so I might be able to glide a little, but I have no confidence in teaching someone. It might turn into a complete mess. But it's more interesting when you don't know what to expect. She answered in an easygoing tone. Indeed, in manga, when a girl goes out with someone, conveniently timed events often occur, but in reality, if you meticulously plan an outing, it can end up being just as expected. Plus, it's been a while since I've gone out with her. Lately, with both of us being busy and the current circumstances, we had mostly been meeting in this room since the end of the captivity. Even though I had the excuse of working on the manga, I found myself genuinely looking forward to the idea of going out together. That sounds good. So, how about this Sunday? Sounds good. It's a deal. There was a slightly cheerful tone in her voice. Then, a soft sensation on my eyelids. My field of vision was enveloped in even deeper darkness. It seems I was blindfolded with both hands. Is this her way of signaling the end of our conversation? Well, good night. Giving my usual bedtime farewell. Good night. The blindfold was removed. I had been tense for a while, even though I tried to appear calm, but as I heard her steady breathing, I began to relax. Her scent was from an aroma diffuser and the warmth seemed to come from an electric blanket beneath us, so it wasn't too bad after all. As I recalled the memories of ice skating from the past, I gradually began to feel drowsy. That night, I dreamt of being kept inside a giant kangaroo pouch. Section. Sunday was a pleasantly sunny winter day. Konata wore a sweater with long sleeves and a coat, and she had khaki work pants on. She even had what's known as mo sleeves on her outfit, complete with everything. I had on a heat-tech fleece with a down jacket on top, and I wore jeans. In addition, both of us were wearing knitted gloves designed to conceal the handcuffs. I had black gloves and she had white ones. Since she had ordered them without me noticing, I accepted the idea of not buying a separate pair, even though it felt a bit embarrassing. It's cold outside, but it gets a bit warm inside the train. Inside the train heading to the skating rink, I sat beside her and mumbled a comment that sounded neither like a conversation starter nor a review. Although many people still wore masks, the practice of opening windows for ventilation, which had been done for a while, had ceased. As someone who mostly stayed indoors, each time I ventured outside, I was reminded of the swift pace of the world. Maybe it's a conspiracy by an organization trying to undress us. Haha, who knows what organization it might be. But maybe the side heroine who suspects the kidnapping will launch a strategy like the North Wind and the Sun. I used my right elbow to help me take off the left glove, jotted down a note on my smartphone, and then put it back in my pocket. It was a bit awkward because it was my non-dominant hand. The reason I wasn't using my dominant hand was that my right hand had a toy handcuff on it, linked to her left hand. If we separated too far, the handcuff chain would become more visible, so naturally, we maintained a distance that allowed our fingers to touch. I had never held hands with someone of the opposite sex during my school days, so even this minor contact made me nervous. However, thanks to the daily close quarters treatment, I managed to avoid being too anxious. The fact that we were both wearing gloves also helped. If we had been barehanded, I would have been much more self-conscious. Before long, we both fell into a comfortable silence. While some people had removed their masks, there was still an atmosphere that made it seem inappropriate to engage in conversation. "Winter, would you like to listen to something?" I say in a voice so quiet that it is lost in the shaking of the train. "NN. You mean music?" "Yes. You don't seem to talk much about music, do you?" "Well, I'm not really knowledgeable about music. Regardless of the season, when I'm working, I tend to listen to soundtracks from anime songs that don't have lyrics." "I see. What kind of music do you listen to?" "This." She took wireless earphones from her coat pocket and handed one side to me. "Oh, sure." I hesitated for a moment, conscious of the other passengers who seemed to be pretending not to watch us, but ultimately, I accepted her earphone. Sharing earphones was such a cliché situation, the kind you'd hesitate to use unless you were in a gag manga or something. Growing up means gaining a clearer view of the world around you. But right now, that objectivity feels somewhat unwelcome. If I were a high school student, would I have been able to enjoy a date without worrying about what others thought? In the position of high school students without anyone to blame. Pachi-pachi, pachi-pachi-pachi, pachi-pachi-pachi. A sound bursts from the earphones. Firecrackers? Barbecue? No, it doesn't sound like either of those. How is it? Well, I mean, what's that sound? It feels familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. It's the sound of burning firewood. Oh, now that you mention it. So, it's like ambient noise, right? I heard somewhere that there's a popular show in foreign countries where they just play videos of burning firewood. I slapped my knee with my left hand. Exactly. Exactly. Music is powerful, and if you're not in the right mindset, the lyrics can invade your brain. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought deeply about it, but maybe my unconscious reason for not choosing music with lyrics when I'm drawing manga is to avoid being influenced by the power of music. Two people discovering an unexpected common ground. Even so, right now, we cling to it. The firewood crackles irregularly, creating a gentle, rhythmic sound. The warmth from below the table heats their calves, giving them the illusion of sitting right next to a real fireplace. When the gentle vibrations of the train were added to the mix, this was like a perfect sleep inducer and I started to doze off. Skytree. Tokyo Skytree. The train on platform 1. We've arrived. Oh, sorry. My consciousness returns as the handcuffs are lightly tugged. We deliberately delayed our disembark from the train together. Because we want to avoid the crowded station, considering the inconvenience of being handcuffed in such a situation. With leisurely steps, we continued on our way to our destination. A temporary ice rink was set up on the 4th floor of Japan's tallest skyscraper. We show our tickets, receive our ice skates and enter the rink. Next to the ice rink, a Christmas tree is already set up. It's said to be illuminated at night. While it might feel a bit underwhelming during broad daylight, I think coming here on a real Christmas night would be overwhelmingly crowded, making it impossible to skate. So, this is just fine. Shall we take off the handcuffs for a moment? It's really hard to put on ice skates like this. I realize as I try to put on the skates. Are you trying to escape with that excuse? If this were a real kidnapping situation, that's what I would say. In reality, that might be the case, but it wouldn't be good if we got injured, and even if I were to teach you, it would be better to practice a bit. I'm not exactly a responsible guardian, but I'm not young enough to recklessly push for something without considering the consequences either. Well, isn't it okay? In an ice rink, there's no escape, after all. Konata says as she sticks both of her hands into the ice skates. And like a menacing crab, she raised the sharp white blades. Have you seen a movie called Edward Scissorhands? I haven't. I see. The awkward scissor-handed man and her figure somehow overlapped. I took off my mask, put on the ice skates and gilded lightly. The first lap was awkward, but by the time I did 3 laps, I had gotten used to it. It's like riding a bike, the body remembers surprisingly well. In a manga, it's common for an event like the heroine being approached by a flirt or a thug to happen as soon as you're alone. I cast my gaze toward the entrance. When Konata spotted me, she waved her hands like drifting seaweed while still wearing her ice skates. It seemed that there was no brave guy here with the guts to hit on a high school girl wearing ice skates. Sorry to keep you waiting. So, shall we both give it a try? Sure. First, tighten the laces properly. Otherwise, your ankles will hurt. As I helped her put on the ice skates, I discreetly reattached the handcuffs. However, unlike on the way here, I had Konata change the handcuffs so that I could take the initiative, placing them on her left-hand side. Konata removed her mask as Wellmond we took our first steps onto the ice rink. So, does this turn it into a story like high school girl captive of a manga artist? She tilted her head and said with a smile, well, that would either be a regular adult manga or a serious case in real life. I decided to humor Konata's comment with a touch of seriousness and guided her to stand on the ice rink, holding onto the wall for support. For now, I'll lead the way, so you just focus on maintaining your balance and getting the feel for skating. Imagine it like dog sledding. So, you're the dog? Yeah, I guess. What kind of dog? A mutt. I replied casually and started to skate, making sure to stay close to the wall so that I could support myself if needed. Konata stumbled a few times, but eventually managed to stand on the ice rink. Phew. I stopped after reaching double-digit laps, leaning against the wall. Was it hard? No, not really, but it's been a while since I skated and I feel like I'm overworking muscles I don't use regularly. I shake my head in response to Konata's worried question. I feel an indescribable fatigue around my legs and shoulders. I guess I don't have the boundless stamina I had in my teens. I still don't want to think of myself as an old man. But when I think about it, I'm at an age where it wouldn't be strange to have kids. Me. In the city, I'm still well within the typical age for being unmarried, but in the countryside, I might be considered a little past the marriageable age. I thought that if I became your weight instead, it would be a bit of a workout for you. Konata says this with a slightly apologetic tone. Indeed, that was the intention. I muttered as if I had just remembered. As for the amount of exercise, I wonder how it is. I don't feel like I'm doing much aerobic exercise. But one thing I'm sure of is that I'll be sore tomorrow. Washa-sha-sha-sha. Suddenly, Konata touched my jaw and the nape of my neck in silence. What? So sudden. My spine stiffens as if I received an electric shock. A reward for a good little puppy. You're such a kind master. Now, how about you try skating by yourself this time? I'll support you. Okay. She reattached the handcuffs to both of my left wrists, and I'm positioned behind her. Are you ready? Ready. Oh, wait, it won't work. I've been taken from behind. If we stay like this, you'll be counterattacked. She exclaimed, eyes widening. Haha, right, I forgot about that setting too. I chuckle. It can't be helped. Manyu. Ha! Konata smoothly slid my right arm into the gap between her coat's chest. There, now it's okay. No, if you're going to support me, you can do it with your waist. Why are you letting me touch? I find myself groping her. By allowing breast touching, it becomes possible to accuse molestation at any time. It's a deterrent. No, seriously, if you did that, my life would be over. What if other customers report us without warning? Don't worry. It's hidden under the coat, so no one can see. She leaned forward. Hey, at least give me a signal when you're going to do that. I managed to adjust. Surprisingly, it goes quite smoothly. Maybe I'll get the hang of this sooner than expected. Whoa, that was close. I catch Konata as she almost fall while taking a curve. NNMM. Konata let out a seductive moan. It wasn't intentional, okay? Fine-tuning my whole body with just the light touch of my right hand without applying too much pressure is incredibly challenging. Phew, I know. You're too desperate. Damn it. They're seriously underestimating me as a man. Even though I'm aware of my own weakness, I'm getting pretty annoyed. If I were an Euro manga protagonist, I'd show her a thing or two. Kiyu. Don't stop so suddenly. I felt a hint of resistance. In that instant, Konata leaned her head against my chest. Lick. I feel a warm sensation on my neck. Oi. I quickly use my right hand to defend. Do you think I don't know your weak spots? Konata smirk and wink. Doing this in public is definitely going too far. For their sake, I should set some boundaries. Hey Konata. What is it? You see, I might not be good at sports, but I do have one special skill that I'm confident in. I put my hand on the wall, giving it a push and making a spin in place. Of course, she's connected to me through the handcuffs. I may not be good at sports, but my sense of balance is strong. I can handle this with ease. Saying that, I close my eyes tightly and put on a brave face. Alright, should I give you more service? I increase the number of spins even further. NN. They're doing their best to endure with their lips tightly sealed. Her actions only further fuel my sadistic desires. There, still more to go. Maya. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry. Eventually, it seems Konata reached her limit, making kitten-like sounds and surrendering. Shall we practice seriously now? I will, so please. I stop the spinning. After she calms down, I start skating again. She falls a few times and during one of those falls, the handcuffs break and things become a bit chaotic. In the end, by late afternoon, she was able to skate normally. We also climbed the Tokyo Skytree and had a meal at the restaurant on the observation deck, somewhere between brunch and dinner. We briefly enjoyed the illumination, but we didn't have much time to relax, so we headed back. I'm already 18, and I meet the legal requirements, so it's okay for me to stay out later. Konata grumbles with discontent on the train ride back. Legal requirements are one thing, but there are still school rules. To be honest, I'm a bit reluctant too. School rules are often arbitrary rules made by adults to make their lives easier. But she's still a child to the extent that she's bound by such things. This will be ending soon, won't it? Will she continue to be interested in older guys like me in the future? She currently attends an all-girls school. However, she'll be graduating soon. Whether she goes on to college or enters the workforce, there will be plenty of guys her age in her future. Even in such an environment, will she still want to be by my side in the future? As an ordinary manga artist with an uncertain future and whose belly is getting chubby, the human heart can't be bound like handcuffs, and it's sometimes more fragile than a 100-yen store toy. I wish this moment could loop forever. Such a cliched daydream briefly crossed my mind. Chapter 2, Destiny 2. I took the plunge and invited him on a date. Honestly, I was quite hesitant. With my current abilities, I can't interfere with the content of the manga. So, I thought it might be best to not do anything unnecessary and leave it be. However, I had more than enough understanding that he has a tendency to keep things to himself over these nearly 3 years. Therefore, I thought it would be better to take him outside for a change of mood, even if it's a bit of a stretch. Of course, I don't deny that I wanted to go out myself, but the main purpose is for his sake. He seemed happy too. Didn't expect him to give me a heads up that he was going to propose. I couldn't help but grin. After being spun around persistently at the skating rink, it's impossible not to figure it out. Speaking of proposals, it involves a ring. Spinning equals a ring, so that's what it means. It's probably the latest trend in wedding proposings. He seemed lonely being an only child, so having at least 3 children is a given. And as for pets, what should we choose? I'd like a big dog, but he's more of a cat person, so it's probably a cat. If it's a cat, a black cat would be perfect. Black cats are often considered ominous when seen outside, but if kept indoors, they bring happiness to the house. If I marry him, maybe I won't have to worry about anything anymore. After all, being a wife is a respectable job. I don't even have to become an assistant. I've heard of cases where a manga artist's spouse doubles as their assistant, but that's probably a minority. There shouldn't be any issues. There shouldn't be, but why do I feel a bit uneasy? Chapter 2.1, Week 2. Well, this week's issue. For now, it seems like there won't be any tricks like before in Foria. I turn the Flare comics front and back to observe them. There aren't any separate volumes like before, and the paper quality is quite ordinary. In other words, it's a pure content competition. Since I've already set a course for a fairly edgy development, there's no turning back now. In this situation, all I can do is continuously improve the quality of the content. For now, in my serialization for this week's issue, I think I was able to enhance the realism of emotional descriptions based on the experiences I gained from going out with her. First, I'll check my own serialization just to be sure. Naturally, Haruka-san wouldn't make any mistakes, and even the comments in the margins at the end of the pages are perfect. After this, I would usually read in order from the beginning, but right now, I can't help but be concerned about Foria. I check the table of contents page to confirm the location and quickly jump to Foria. As always, the perspective is beautifully executed. As for the content, no way. Re-importing original characters from the anime version, so that's how it's going. I can't stop flipping the pages. In the world of manga, when a series gets adapted into an anime, it's common for original characters to be added due to time constraints or differences in media. In the case of Foria, the reception of these added characters has been tricky. They are beloved by fans who came in through the anime, but some fans of the original work criticize them for not fitting the series' worldview. From my perspective, I didn't think they were as bad as the criticism suggests, but I could see how certain aspects of their portrayal might be off-putting to some. There were even rumors spreading about how these original characters might be causing delays in the anime sequel of Foria, but with no evidence to support that claim. However, in this week's issue, author Ario-sensei seemed to dispel those concerns. Moreover, it's not just a simple re-import. They've managed to refine the essential aspects of the original characters without losing them, and they've polished their personalities and designs to a level that even the original Foria fans can accept. So, is this a challenge to me, saying, I can easily adapt to an anime whenever I want? Am I overthinking this with too much negativity and self-consciousness? No, but knowing Ario-sensei, they might just do something like that without hesitation, considering the bold declarations they've made. Anyway, this is probably another loss for me. I gently closed the Flare comics when I saw the words next issue, front cover in color. Thanks to this re-import, Ario-sensei might be able to attract some of the users who have only watched the anime. I'm impressed by their broad and flexible perspective on entertainment. Ario-sensei is not just a genius manga artist but also not limited to being a manga geek. In this situation, can I really beat Ario-sensei? Our innate talents are too different, and our skills are on completely different levels. I feel like I'm playing rock, paper, scissors, but I can only throw paper. Hey, is it okay if I work in the room for a bit? A voice asks from the kitchen through the door. Sure, but what about school? I reply in a slightly louder voice. Well, my teacher got sick, and they just sent a message saying the first and second periods are cancelled for today in group line. The voice gets closer, and the door opens. I see. Since it's a weird gap in my schedule, I thought I might as well do some early spring cleaning. The figure that eventually appears is holding a vacuum cleaner, a broom, and a bucket with a mop hanging on the edge, basically, a very ordinary cleaning kit. That's all fine, but That's quite a plan. But why the maid outfit? For some reason, Konata who came in is wearing a maid outfit. It's one of those Victorian-style long skirts. Judging by the quality of the fabric, it doesn't seem like a cheap cosplay costume you'd find at a typical department store. Because it was given to me by the home economics department's daughter. It seems that Konata has started visiting the home economics department while assisting with Ryo-sensei's drawing materials, and she has made some friends there. Just the fact that Konata is attending school like this makes me happy. Not a French maid, right? Too bad. Their skirts are shorter over there. She tilts her head in response to my gaze. No, not at all. In fact, the Victorian style feels more elegant. Besides, wearing such a short skirt in the winter would be cold, don't you think? Even that skirt looks a bit tight for winter. It's okay. I'm wearing tights underneath. Konata raises her leg and casually pulls up her skirt. Her porcelain white skin is visible through the black tights. It's almost better than being completely exposed. I see. Do you want to see the absolute territory? Konata remains in the posture of pulling up her skirt and pauses as she speaks. I don't want to see it. Well, actually, I kind of do want to see it. But that's the kind of thing you catch a glimpse of by accident, and it feels different when it's deliberately shown. Give me a break. Besides, I'll help with the cleaning. Please unlock the chain for a moment. No. Serving is the maid's job. Master should relax. She shakes her head and starts sweeping in full maid mode. With that setup, isn't it strange that the master is chained up? The master has been turned into a beast by a witch's curse. That's why restraint is necessary. Among the servants who left one by one, I, the loyal maid, remained. That's actually a pretty plausible setup. It might sound a bit old-fashioned with the witch's curse, but if you replace it with a zombie-like post-apocalyptic world, it could easily be serialized in some web manga. Although I want to help with the cleaning, there's nothing I can do unless Konata unlocks the restraints. I try to continue reading the Flare comics, but I can't help feeling guilty about relaxing on my own. Eventually, I started sketching the rare maid-clad Konata. Manga with maid characters are enjoyable to read, but when it comes to drawing them, the production costs and difficulty skyrocket. As I think about this, I also take some reference photos with my smartphone. Konata, who has made her way around the room, stops in front of the air conditioner. Then, she stretches and starts jumping up and down. Do you want to sweep the top of the air conditioner? Wasn't there a step stool in the kitchen? That could potentially be used for an escape, so it was removed. Very strict. She turns to me and stares intently. What's wrong? Should I help after all? I'm not particularly tall, but I am taller than Konata, so I should be able to reach the top of the air conditioner with the broom. Well then, shall I ask for your help? Leave it to me. I nod and lift my face, making it easier for Konata to unlock the chain. Konata, please unlock the chain quickly. Foo-foo. You're trying to escape again by saying that. There's no need to unlock the chain. She laughs as if I said something absurd. Ha! But with this chain's length, I can't reach the air conditioner, you know? I walk towards the air conditioner. The air conditioner is installed at the upper corner of the room. With the current length of the chain, I can get fairly close, but I can't stand directly in front of it. The distance is just enough for me to reach out and feel the direct airflow from the air conditioner with my hand. No problem. Lie face down there. Like this. I lie down on the floor as instructed. Yes, just like that. Stay still. Ha. Konata takes a small breath. Then, I feel warmth and weight on my back. Isn't it a bit unusual for a maid to use her master as a step stool? I voice a modest question. With my chest being compressed, my voice comes out strangely faltering. No, it's not like that. This is a massage. Cleaning and relaxation. A competent maid who can handle two forms of service simultaneously, she says proudly. It does feel kind of nice, but could this possibly be considered a JK reflexology service? No, don't think about unnecessary things. Right now, I should focus on being a willing step stool. Sweeping the top of the air conditioner won't take long anyway. I relax my shoulders. As I remain still, I only move my eyes, and a grey object comes into view in my field of vision, a bucket. Naturally, it's filled with water. Oh, this is the classic clumsy maid flag. It's a well-established trope that when a clumsy girl gets all enthusiastic, nothing good comes out of it. Ah, as if in sync with my thoughts, Konata loses her balance. She stumbles, inadvertently digging her heel into the flab of my side and slipping one foot off. Gwa. Immediately afterward, there's an impact on my back. Sorry. Her legs rise gracefully and elegantly like a ballet dancer. The moment she kicks the bucket with her tiptoes, it feels like it's burned into my retina in slow motion. Splash. Gradually, the moisture spreading from my back informs me of what happened. Regaining my senses, I managed to free myself from the position where I was under Konata's rear and sat up. Haha, is this also part of the witch's curse? I joke and wipe my face with my hand. Konata remains silent, wearing the bucket on her head like a medieval knight. Her face is hidden, but I get the sense that she's pouting a little. Anyway, you should change quickly. It's not good to catch a cold, and if you get water stains on the maid outfit your friend gave you, that wouldn't be good either. My electronic devices are unharmed. The kotatsu carpet is only slightly damp at the edge, and since it's before using a mop, the water isn't dirty, which is fortunate. I'll get a bath towel. Konata tries to stand up while still wearing the bucket helmet and heads towards the kitchen, bumping into the wall. You can take your time. Slowly. I remove the bucket from Konata's head and say reassuringly, if that's what the master commands. She nods and quickly exits the room as if she's in a race. I'm about to take off my soggy fleece, reaching for the hem, when I stop suddenly. Oh, right. I can't take it off because I'm chained. Unable to do much else, I wring out the water from the fleece into the bucket and use a rag to wipe up the spilled water on the floor. Oh, it seems like it splashed onto the wall a bit. I'm back. I turn around at the sound of the door opening, momentarily freezing. I brought the bath towel. That's good, but why are you completely naked? I hurriedly turn back towards the wall. Thanks to the bath towel Konata brought, the important parts are covered, so it's all right. But I need to dry you off quickly. The sound of the key being removed from the chain makes a clinking noise. Konata, didn't I tell you it's okay to take it slow? Let's think about priorities. Murmuring while taking off the fleece. Shouldn't you punish the maid who made a mistake first? With those words, a feather duster is placed into my hand. What should I do with this? No. In the first place, once you take off the maid outfit, the maid roleplay is over, right? So, right now, as a naked me, I need to change jobs from maid to female slave. Konata mutters in a tone that can't be determined as serious or joking. The soft touch of a bath towel moves back and forth on my back. Why would it turn out like this? Besides, if I'm the one being held captive as a slave, the master-slave relationship won't work. It would be more like a subordinate. What kind of situation is this? Like a forbidden love story between a knight who's a war prisoner and the slave entrusted with their care by their master. A warm and gentle pressure touches my back, and the bath towel explores my chest. In the position of being embraced from behind, I shiver at the objective situation I find myself in. Konata, this is probably pushing the boundaries, so stay. But seriously, how do you come up with these things so spontaneously? You might have the talent of a creator. I snatch the bath towel from Konata's hand and distance myself from her while keeping my back turned to her. Luckily, my jeans are not wet. If I had taken them off, it would have been a mess. Creator as a slave. That remark isn't funny in various ways. I dry myself with a serious expression, then retreat to the changing room to put on my clothes. I cover the freshly laundered maid outfit and underwear with my fleece as if to hide them in the laundry basket. Soon, Konata, wrapped in a bath towel, approaches with a slightly displeased look, pursing her lips. She enters the changing room as I leave and starts blow-drying her hair. When Konata reappears, she's back in her usual school uniform. I heave a sigh of relief. I guess a school uniform is best for a high school girl. With thoughts that might be considered perverse if taken out of context, I see off Konata's late departure for school. Section. Sensei, may I have a moment of your time? Haruka's voice on the phone is calm and polite. Yes. Normally, her words would be more concerning to me than anything else, but they seem to pass through my distracted mind. Thank you. First, I want to inform you about the preliminary results of the survey. It looks like it will be tough for you to surpass Ryo-sensei again in this week's issue. We haven't received paper surveys yet, as we're currently only tallying the electronic ones, so it's not confirmed yet. I see. Thank you for the update. To be honest, when I read this week's Foria, I had half expected this outcome. Surprisingly, the news doesn't affect me as much as I thought it would. Perhaps I unconsciously set up mental defenses. Or maybe it's because my thoughts are largely occupied by Konata, who is currently lying beside me, looking troubled. However, Sensei's serial is undoubtedly among the top 3. I apologize for repeating this from last week, but it's not that there's anything wrong with your work, Sensei. It's just that Ryo-sensei is standing out more. Thank you for your concern. Do you have any advice? This is the first time Konata has caught a cold. Could it be because she got soaked a few days ago? No, maybe I've been burdening her too much with my care all this time. Perhaps that exhaustion has manifested in this way. Well, if I had to say something, I'd mention that there seems to be a lot of emotional descriptions and fewer dynamic scenes. While emotional descriptions are important in shoujo manga, it's our magazine's main target audience. Even though static scenes are more common, it might not be a problem, but we primarily cater to a male audience. I'm not sure how to put it appropriately, but it feels somewhat more like a light novel-style approach. Sensei, are you there? Why yes. I hurriedly responded. I instinctively take notes of Haruka's words, even though my thoughts are somewhat scattered. However, my gaze remained fixed on Konata's red, feverish face. Sensei, were you busy just now? If so, please don't push yourself. Oh, no. It's not like that. Sorry. Anyway, a Ryo-sensei is a Ryo-sensei, and you're you. Please create your work without being overly conscious of others. Understood. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. Goodbye. The call ends. I really should go home. If I give you my cold, it'll be troublesome. Konata, wearing a mask under the blanket, speaks intermittently. The thermometer beeps repeatedly, pippy 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 pee. I removed the thermometer from between Konata's collarbone and pajamas. 38.2 degrees Celsius. It's quite a high fever, but it doesn't seem severe enough to call an ambulance. But, Konata, there's no one at your parents' house to take care of you and you don't want to go to the hospital either. That's true, but I don't want to be a hindrance to your work. Konata has grown in many ways, but it seems she still has some unresolved issues regarding her family environment. Of course, if it comes to it, I would take her to the hospital without hesitation, even if she protests. However, in the current situation, respecting Konata's wishes to the fullest extent possible, I have no choice but to take care of her and ensure she rests. That's not a problem. In fact, if you were in a place where I couldn't keep an eye on you, I'd be even more worried, and I wouldn't be able to focus on my work. I'm sorry. So, don't apologize. Taking care of you now is much easier compared to when you took care of me. I'm sure of it. I said this as I replaced the cooling patch on Konata's forehead. For me, taking care of you is a joy. But you're different, right? You don't have the luxury of wasting time. Indeed, I don't find joy in caregiving itself. It's just that my worry overshadows everything else. While I find it a bit pleasing that I can return the favor for taking care of me when I was sick before, it would have been much better if Konata hadn't caught a cold in the first place. There's no wasted experience for a manga artist. Every experience becomes fodder for creativity. It's not entirely false, but it's not entirely true either. It's just an empty phrase with a pleasing sound. Why did I blurt out such a frivolous line? To reassure Konata, perhaps? Or maybe, was it because I wanted to convince myself, the talentless me who fears running out of ideas for a turnaround plot too soon? I thought I had come up with a perfect 120-point development for myself. But for 2 weeks in a row, I've been completely defeated by a Ryo-sensei. Witnessing a Ryo-sensei's brutally powerful talent that easily surpasses the already high expectations of Fourier readers, my confidence is shaken. In that case, shouldn't you do some sketching? Don't worry about it. It's better if I do it naturally, it's more useful as a reference. But more importantly, is there anything you want? I have some sports drinks and jelly chilled. Should I make you some rice porridge? I restrain Konata with my hand as she tries to get up and ask her. Of course, I'm not currently chained up. I can cook, do laundry, and go shopping freely. It's only natural because when I was in captivity, it would have been a problem if something happened to Konata. I'm fine. That's a lie. You have a look on your face like you want something. I'm wearing a mask, so you can't tell what my face looks like, right? Yeah, but just by looking into your eyes, I can tell that much. Konata has been wearing a mask since we first met. Now I can see her face without it, but if I were to calculate, I've probably seen her with a mask on for much longer. I'm feeling a bit sweaty and uncomfortable. Is that so? Just wait a moment. I'll fetch some warm water for you. I rushed to the bathroom. I poured hot water into the basin I grabbed from the bathroom and returned to the room with a towel. I placed the set by Konata's bedside. Thank you. Konata lethargically sits up and starts unbuttoning her pajamas. I'll be in the kitchen then. Call me when you're done. You don't have to go that far now. Just turn around for a moment. Konata tells me as I turn on my heel. Is that so? I sit on the floor and face away from Konata. The sound of a towel being wrung out, like chorororo. I idly run my fingers along the edge of the kotatsu table without any particular purpose. I hear the faint sound of friction between Konata's skin and the towel. Ha! Phew! Eventually, Konata's breathing becomes slightly heavier. What's wrong? I ask while still facing away from Konata. It's nothing. It's just a bit hard to reach my back. Should I help you with your back then? Sexual harassment. No. It's just a normal act of assistance. Besides, you often tease me with sexual innuendos, so why are you suddenly so reserved now? In the first place, couldn't some of Konata's provocative comments in our usual interactions be considered sexual harassment from my perspective? I didn't take a bath yesterday, so if you get too close. She mutters in a voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Oh, well, sorry about that. I guess I was a bit dense. But come to think of it, when I was first kidnapped by you and until I took a bath, there was more than a day between them, right? To be honest, didn't I smell pretty bad back then? Well, that's different. Back then, I wanted to remember your scent, so it had a purpose. Are you a police dog? Well, I can't just let it slide. I don't like being the only one taken down, so let me wipe it off. When I count to 3, I'll turn around. 3, 2, 1. I declared forcefully and turned around. Pervert. She covered herself with my pajamas. Despite the words, there seemed to be an atmosphere that wasn't entirely displeased. Yeah. Manga artists draw romantic comedies fueled by that perversion. I took the towel from Konata's hand, dipped it in the sink and wrung it out. Well, in a romantic comedy, wiping the body of a naked JK would definitely be a scene to trigger some excitement. Strangely enough, I didn't feel that way. I don't need to think about what to do with a weakened opponent, it's just depressing. Gently moving the towel along the fine-grained, porcelain-like skin. I may be facing Konata's body with the most neutral perspective in a sense. My apologies. Did it hurt? I had intended to be as gentle as possible, but it was my first time wiping someone's back like this. It's difficult to gauge the right amount of pressure. It's alright, I just got a little ticklish. Konata said that, covering their face with both hands. Taking about 15 minutes to finish wiping her back. Okay, we're done. Oh, I'll make some rice porridge, but do you have any preferences for the taste? I'm not very hungry. If you really can't eat, that's fine, but it's better to have something in your stomach even if it's a bit of a stretch. For now, I'll make it for my own lunch, so if you feel like it later, you can eat. Alright. I don't care what it tastes like. That's the most troublesome answer. You, making something for me while considering my preferences, that's the best. I want to know what that's like. Even with a cold, Konata was still Konata. Sure. Well, being a little demanding is the privilege of someone with a cold. I carried a basin and a towel as I walked out of the room. I still didn't feel joy or desire in taking care of her. However, I couldn't help but feel a strange and indescribable sense of comfort. It was an emotion that lacked the indulgence of protectiveness, yet it wasn't entirely devoid of a cold, dark pleasure that could be described as possessiveness. Fortunately, Konata's cold cleared up in just 2 days. She returned to school, and I continued to draw manga while chained to my desk. Our everyday life resumed. The only thing that changed was that both of us, without saying a word, began to avoid discussing the serializations we were working on. Section. At night. This is delicious. It doesn't have any of that fishy smell and it's refreshing. I picked up my chopsticks to eat the salmon and yuzu stir-fry Konata made for me. Got some yuzu from my school friends. Konata says with refined chopstick skills. Oh, is that the box from the kitchen? Isn't it a lot for a gift? My hometown is known for being a big farming family, and my parents keep sending them to me. The whole dorm smelled like yuzu because of it. Konata says matter-of-factly, with a hint of envy in their tone. That's very elegant. Maybe it's because I work in a job that tends to isolate me from the world, but touching things like this season's specialties makes it feel even fresher. Is that so? That's why I'm having yuzu baths today. But today isn't the winter solstice yet. I say, glancing at the calendar on the wall. There's so much of it, I can't use it all at once, so I'm going to use it every day until the winter solstice. That's pretty relaxed. Don't you think the effect might diminish if you don't do it on the right day? Since Konata has a tendency towards the occult, I thought she'd be the type to be particular about such things. Not at all. The wordplay yuzu ga kiku is the origin of using yuzu in the winter solstice bath. So I'm going to make it work. That's a pun. Is it true? If you doubt it, why don't you look it up? Konata says, looking a bit offended. Sounds too good to be true. Holding my smartphone in my left hand and doing a quick keyword search for yuzu bath auspicious before putting it back down. About half of auspicious items are puns, especially those dating back to the Edo period. Like sarum turning into atarime, Japanese dried whole squid. Is that so? There are many other examples too. As I listen to Konata's talk about auspicious items, we quickly finish our dinner. Ever since becoming a manga artist, I've developed a habit of eating quickly to maximize my creative time, even if it means rushing through meals. Thanks for the meal, I say, placing my chopsticks down and clasping my hands together. The bath's already ready, so why don't you go ahead and take a bath? Konata interrupts the meal and releases me from my constraints. Thank you. I'll do that. I reply, getting up from my seat. If I don't go in early, our bath times will overlap. Logically, Konata's family bath should be larger, so I could wait until we get back home to use it. But for some reason, she always wants to use my family's bath. I undress and open the bathroom door, greeted by the scent of yuzu that tickles my nose. I wash myself and get into the hot bath. Yuzu slices floating in the bathtub. I bring them closer to my nose to take in their fragrance, run my fingers over the wrinkles, and absent-mindedly play with them when suddenly, gara 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 gara. I slowly turn my head in the direction of the sound, using the yuzu slices in my hands to limit my field of vision. Soon, I catch a glimpse of black fabric. Alright, she's wearing a swimsuit. I finish my safety check and return the yuzu slices to the bath. Back when we first met, I was constantly nervous, but with repeated intrusions like this, I've grown used to it. Konata, can you wait for a few more minutes? I'll be out soon. But it's more energy efficient if we both bathe together, right? Ignoring my words, she, in her black bikini, closes the door and sits on the bath chair. Well, that may be true, but if we both get in, the water might overflow, and that would be a waste. You're mean. It's a yuzu bath, so you should be more accommodating. That's a tough one. I shrug, smiling wryly, and lean against the edge of the bathtub. Based on my past experiences, She usually intrudes into the bath when she has something she wants to discuss with me. It could be about how to approach a girl she wants to be friends with, the dance moves for a creative dance routine, or deciding on group members for a school trip. I haven't always been able to offer great advice, but if talking to me makes her feel better, then that's fine by me. After rinsing off lightly with the shower, Konata enters the bath. Her bosom easily scatters the small yuzu slices. If her breasts were citrus fruits, they would be late ripening yuzus. You know. Yeah. Christmas is coming soon, she says and leans her back against my chest. The sensation of her long black hair is pleasantly ticklish. A different kind of warmth rises to my cheeks, separate from the heat of the bath. No matter how many times I experience it, some things never get old. That's right. I nod slightly, as if in agreement. So, for Christmas, according to our school rules, we're allowed to stay up late. She takes her time between words, emphasizing her point. That's quite a specific school rule. Well, because Christian students often have proper Christmas services that can go on late into the night. I see. Even though I've never actually checked Sakurabare's rules. I believe Konata's words. It sounds like a typical private school episode. So that means I'm genuinely free on Christmas. Not bound by any laws or school rules. Konata continues, sinking her face below the waterline and blowing bubbles. Is there anywhere you'd like to go on Christmas? Maybe we could give the Skytree illumination another try? With such a build-up, I can't help but consider her feelings. During our previous ice skating outing, she seemed captivated by the illumination. Yuan, I'm not really good with crowds, Konata says, poking at the yuzu slices with her index finger and shaking her head. Swing and a miss. I see. So, should we just stay at home as usual? Remember how we regretted ordering that whole cake last year? I reminisce while looking up at the droplets on the ceiling. Our tradition is as cliché as it gets. We toast with champagne, eat fried chicken and cake, exchange gifts, watch a Christmas-themed movie, and then quickly wrap things up, as if Santa Claus is still doing a pre-flight check on his reindeer. It's an uncreative, childlike Christmas, devoid of any sophistication or sensuality. UN, but maybe that alone isn't enough. Konata says, slowly turning around. I'm left speechless by the alluring gaze in her moistened eyes. Right before me, her flushed skin takes on an out-of-season sakura hue. This year, I want to be with you. Until morning comes. She declares, softly but firmly. Then, she scoops up some water with her slightly wrinkled hands and brings it to her face. The created current moves the yuzu slices, and eventually, they collide with my chest. Yellow fruits covered in silent wrinkles. It's as if they were balls thrown from her to my heart. Section. A usual morning. In the temple grounds, there is an okay market bustling with people buying lucky charms such as bear-shaped rakes. The television, serving as a substitute for a clock, broadcasts seasonal local news. A bear-shaped rake? Maybe I should buy one just to try it out. I say while nibbling on blueberry jam toast. I still haven't come up with a strategy for a comeback. To defeat a Ryo-sensei, it might be my only option to rely on divine intervention. Isn't it better to not do that? Ha! Why? Because bear-shaped rakes are cursed items. Konata says as she creates a pattern on her toast with jam, resembling a magical circle. No, they're lucky charms. They're more like celebratory items. But, with bear-shaped rakes, there's a rule that once you buy one, you have to gradually buy a larger one every year. Konata says as I eat my toast into a circular shape and take a sip of tea. Indeed, when you put it that way, it does have a cursed equipment vibe that you can't ignore. But apart from the bear-shaped rake, I'd like to go shopping for New Year's sooner or later. Do you mean you'll order osechi dishes? Well, osechi might end up being too much, but I'd like to buy some toshikoshi soba, kamaboko, and tazukuri. Especially tazukuri, as it's not easy to find if you miss this season. Although I've been distancing myself from alcohol recently, I still want to enjoy some salty tazukuri with a bit of sake during the first 3 days of the new year. Pervert. Why do you say that? Tazukuri is a symbol of prosperity for one's offspring. Again with that. You mentioned it during the Mikan Season 2. In town, the first snowfall has been observed, and children have been seen playing in the snow. The television reports. By the way, that's also a symbol of prosperity for one's offspring. I point to the rabbit-shaped snow sculpture on the TV. It's like I've become a comedian who connects everything to dirty jokes. Or like Furuito, who associates everything with genitals and sex. Will you take responsibility? Konata asks with a tilt of her head after licking off the crumbs of toast that got on her hand. What? Is this my fault? Isn't this a matter for our ancestors? Japan has a collective responsibility system. As if afraid of silence, we fill the gap in our conversation with banter. What should we do for Christmas? I haven't returned the ball that Konata handed to me yet. Until now, I had avoided thinking too deeply about it, using the excuse of the law. But now, that protective barrier no longer exists. How do I feel about Konata? Do I like her as a romantic interest? Or do I see her as an object of base desires? Can those two even be strictly distinguished? Various questions keep popping up one after another, accumulating like dust. There's only one thing I understand. If I make a move on Konata in this situation, there will be no turning back. It's an irresistibly enticing and at the same time terrifying temptation that defies description. As the busy morning hours eventually come to an end and Konata goes to school, I feel a slight sense of relief. I turn off the television. In the suddenly quiet room, I face my graphics tablet. By the time it's past noon, I've already put down my pen. Despite the time spent taking care of Konata, I'm surprised at how I've managed to finish my manuscript with such ease. Editing is complete, and all that's left is to send it to Haruka-san. Yet, for some reason, I can't bring myself to press the send button. The panel layouts, tones, and dialogue are all flawless. But for some reason, a nagging feeling that can't be rationalized is preventing me from clicking that final send button. Let's take a moment and check it again. I considered getting some coffee and standing up. Ding dong. Pippy 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 pee. Ding dong. The intercom rings insistently, forcibly diverting my attention with its strangely rhythmic pattern. Oh, wait. Did I order something online? Wait, the keys. I retrieve the keys from the hidden spot that Konata had taught me, untying myself just in case. It wouldn't be a joke if there were a fire or something, and I couldn't escape. In a hurry, I stuff the entire kidnapping kit into the back of the closet and answer the intercom. Yes. Ah, it's Omona-sensei, right? I'm from Flare Comics. A cute, girlish voice addresses me in a somewhat scam-like tone. With very few acquaintances, there's only one person who fits this distinctive description. You're a Ryo-sensei. Right. Of course. Is there anyone other than a genius manga artist with such a cute voice like mine? I really want you to open up quickly. Wasting even a single second of my time is equivalent to delaying a second of manga history. All right. Just a moment. I rush to the front door, kick off my shoes and open it. Hello. I've arrived. Ryo-sensei strikes a cute pose, placing the backs of her hands under her chin in a heart shape. She's still dressed in her Lolita outfit, as usual. On her back, there's a backpack with a surprisingly realistic camel face. You arrived safely. By the way, how did you find my address so easily? Well, I do know it. We've helped each other out a few times, and I sent you proof of payment documents when I paid for your assistance. We've also exchanged copies of our work. Shrugging her shoulders as if it's obvious. Oh, right, that's true. Anyway, are you going to let me in or not? I did bring a little something as a token of my visit, after all. It's not for sale, you know? Ryo-sensei pulls out a cylindrical object from her backpack and unfolds it. Ooh, it's a Fourier tapestry. I'm genuinely pleased by this. Oh, I apologize. Please come in. I push my shoes to the side to make room for Ryo-sensei. After all, she looks like a middle school student and I can't afford to argue with a legally aged Lolita like her in my own entranceway. Especially considering the coming and going of a certain high school girl, Konata. I'm coming in. So, this is Omona-sensei's house. Ario-sensei remarks as she takes off her shoes and confidently strides into the room. I brew some tea and place it on a tray before returning to the room. I'd make coffee if it were just me, but Ario-sensei prefers tea. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. She has already comfortably tucked her legs under the kotatsu and started peeling a mandarin. She's making herself at home without me saying anything, as if she's in her own house. Thank you. By the way, did you preheat the cups and the pot properly? Upon taking a sip of tea, Professor Oriofu furrows her brows slightly. Well, no, about that. Oh well, it's fine. By the way, haven't you displayed the autographed color illustration I gave you before? I've stored it to prevent it from fading. I want to display it, but I can't tell her that I've been forbidden from idol worship by Konata. It's fan psychology, isn't it? I'd like you to enjoy displaying it, but as a collector, that's how it goes. She nods, crossing her arms. So, what brings you here today? Oh, yeah, about that. You see, I was curious about how Omona-sensei, who got completely thrashed by me, is feeling today, so I came to observe. Ario-sensei says with a wide smile. I'm at a loss for words, unable to react to her statement. Hey, how are you feeling right now? How does it feel to have your daring and unconventional romance plot, which boldly deviated from the norm, crushed with a cheat stick powered by a best-selling author's influence and achievements? Ario-sensei taunts, thrusting her hands out to the sides and swaying agilely left and right. I find myself being provoked by her, like an old-school ASCII art character. I don't really have any particular feelings about it. It's only natural that an ordinary person like me wouldn't be able to compete with the genius Ario-sensei. That's just how it is. Are you serious? Ario-sensei narrows her eyes and lowers her tone. That's... Of course. But I couldn't say it. The same mysterious force that prevented me from clicking the last mouse button earlier stopped me from saying it now. The feeling that I can't compete with Ario-sensei has always been inside me, and it is indeed true. But can I confidently say it's only natural? Have I unconsciously given up on myself? Phoo. Ario-sensei, is the manuscript for the next issue ready? After letting out a deep sigh, I glance at my drawing tablet. Ha! Oh, yes, it's ready, for the most part. Can I see it? Oh, of course, it wouldn't be fair if you showed me yours and I didn't show you mine later. Well, I'm still in the editing process. That's okay. Show it to me. Okay. I'll show it. I reluctantly agree, giving in to Ario-sensei's determination. Just as I thought. Ario-sensei sighs heavily after reading my manuscript in just a few minutes. Is it really that bad? Terrible. Last week's manuscript didn't seem to be catering to the readers, which was unusual for you, Omona-sensei. But this week is even worse. Ario-sensei dismisses my words and takes a seat at the kotatsu table, casually tossing a cluster of mandarins into her mouth. Not catering to the readers? Well, I did get permission from Haruka-san for the storyboard, and while I can't say it's great, I don't think it's that bad. I offer some excuses. I know my work isn't the best, but hearing such criticism makes me want to defend my own creation. Well, logically, there aren't any major flaws, so Haruka, as an editor, can't really deny it. To deny it would make it a highly subjective matter. But, Omona-sensei, when you were drawing this manuscript, how many readers' faces did you have in mind? Tell me about the profiles of your imaginary readers. She asks, demanding the information with the demeanor of a loan shark charging exorbitant interest. What do you mean by imaginary readers? I don't specifically think about particular readers when I'm drawing, not just for this one but in general. I have a general target audience in mind, like men in their 20s to 30s, but that's about it. I tilted my head. I wonder what she means by imaginary readers. Are they like imaginary friends or something? I see. I guess Omona-sensei might really be an ordinary person. You're so in tune with the reader's perspective that you naturally secure their point of view without consciously thinking about it. Ario-sensei nodded her head with her gaze downcast, muttering to herself. Is that a compliment or an insult? It's a bit of both. Well, you see, I have dozens of imaginary readers living in my head. I imagine and draw works that would please those people. Of course, I don't leave them as is. I let them grow and evolve over time to fit the changing seasons of life. They get jobs, fall ill, get married, divorced, have children or can't have them, experiencing various life stages, living out their individual lives. I always consider what these people would say when they read my manga. She explains in a serious tone while rotating her head in circles. That's, pretty amazing. It's like a thought experiment, isn't it? Just as Einstein developed the theory of special relativity through thought experiments, it seems she used imaginary readers to guide Fourier. Well, in broad terms, yes. Anyway, because I'm a genius, if I leave things alone, I tend to drift away from the general readership. So, I have to consciously adjust. Ario-sensei shrugs confidently, wearing a smug expression. I see. I nod in deep understanding. If an average author were to say such things, it would be laughable, but she has the track record and credibility to say something like that without it being dismissed. So, with that in mind, I'll be frank, Omona-sensei's current work is really bad. That's what my inner Soto Toshio-kun and Obara Hitoshi-san are saying. It's like reading a diary exchange between middle school couples. You can tell that the author is trying to show off how fulfilled their personal life is, like, oh, this author must have a great personal life, so they're gushing in their manga. When this happens, readers lose interest. You see it often. The author used to create works that were full of their inner introvert, but the moment they get married, their style suddenly changes, and they start preaching about the wonders of love or the selfless love between parent and child. It's fine to explore those themes in new works, but it's a no-go to suddenly change the tone of an existing work that had a different stance and had attracted fans. Well, occasionally, those annoying know-it-all otaku fans become more interested in the author than the work itself and start praising it like it's some kind of personal novel. I find those self-satisfying authors extremely distasteful, so I reject them. Oh, sorry. It might be a bit unclear. If I had to name specific works. You don't have to tell me. Is there something wrong with me? I interject into Ario-sensei's rapid-fire monologue. Based on my experience as her assistant, if I don't interrupt her when she goes off track, it could take at least an hour for her to come back on topic. Don't you realize your own feelings? In a nutshell, it's color blur. Omona-sensei, you're in love. Ario-sensei declares with the force that would warrant a DON sound effect while pointing her index finger at me. In love, me? I say, crossing my arms and looking down. I don't know, ultimately, it's something for you to decide, but at least, that's what I think. You know, there are two types of creators. The type that falls in love, and it becomes a stimulus that has a positive impact on their work, and then there's the type that gets so immersed in love that nothing else gets done and they become a mess. I used to think that Omona-sensei is the first type, but maybe, just maybe, you're the second type. Ario-sensei says in a somewhat dismissive tone. I never even considered the possibility that my private emotions could have a negative impact on my work. How should I say it? She was so close to my side that it was all too obvious. My relationship with Konata, which began with her abduction, has skipped over every stage, physical and emotional, that typically precedes such closeness. The current serialization itself wouldn't exist without her, so I've unquestioningly believed that she was an unconditional positive influence on my creativity. Fufu, that sounds like a cliched line straight out of a childhood friend romantic comedy. Oh, by the way, I think I'm also the second type. I've never fallen in love in the real world, so I can't say for sure. But if that were the case, it would be scary, so no matter how close we get, I won't cross that final line. Ario-sensei responds, her gaze distant. Considering that she's a fully grown adult, she must have experienced various things in her life. Although it piqued my curiosity, I don't have the intention or the right to delve into that territory. So, assuming that my feelings of love are indeed ruining my work, what should I do? I ask with a glimmer of hope in my voice. Well, the simplest solution would be to break up with your girlfriend. Have a talk with her, delete her contact information, and if that seems impossible, just ghost her or run away at night and cut ties. Ario-sensei says casually as she finishes the remaining oranges in one go and tosses the peels into the trash. I can't do that. I responded immediately. Whether the feelings I hold for Konata are love, affection, or Stockholm Syndrome, I don't know. But I won't be able to find happiness even if my work succeeds by discarding her. It's not about pitying her or anything like that. I can't forgive myself for using her, my benefactor, to extend the life of my work. No matter how stuck I get, I won't yield on that point. Well, if you're that determined, then you'll have to figure it out on your own in the end. Creators are alone. Lovers are others. Spouses are just pieces of paper connecting you to others, and even family members are connected to you by blood. It's okay to seek help, but don't become dependent. If you want to continue being a mangaka, keep absolute solitude deep in your heart. She crosses her arms and opens her eyes wide, despite her petite stature. Dependency. I see. Have I been dependent on Konata? Her words struck a chord with me, and I instantly understood. There was no word more fitting than dependency to describe the relationship between me and Konata, as well as the feelings I harbored for her. I had been complacent in my role as a captive, using Konata as the muse for my creations and justifying the exploitation of her ideas. However, the manga that she had become a fan of was created when she wasn't around. That's right. If that were the case, I hadn't truly created the story of the manga artist kidnapped by a mysterious high school girl yet. All hope wasn't lost. Even for someone like me, there were still things I could do. Sorry for being so harsh, okay? Well, as promised, I'll show you the latest manuscript for Foria. There's no greater joy for fans than getting to see the raw manuscript before it's published, right? Let this lift your spirits. Ario-sensei says, eagerly reaching for her tablet in her backpack. No, thank you. I politely decline with a smile. Why, Omona-sensei? Have you gone crazy? She opens her eyes wide, strikes a triumphant pose and shows the most exaggerated reaction of the day. I haven't gone crazy. I won't submit the manuscript I showed you to Haruka-san. I'll reject it. In fact, I'll take a break. So, I don't have the right to read your completed manuscript. I just made up my mind. I'll inconvenience Haruka-san, but I'll do it anyway. I have the conviction that it's the best choice for the work. Seriously? Taking a break? After all that criticism? Are you sure? Omona-sensei, have you ever failed to submit a manuscript before? She raises her eyebrows, puts her hand to her mouth in surprise. Yeah, that's right. For a mere mortal like me, the only appeal I have for the editorial department is my diligence. I say with a wry smile. My standing within the editorial department might suffer, but even so, I have to do it. Enough with the self-deprecation. So, what's the point of taking a break? Of course, there's only one reason why a manga artist takes a break other than illness, right? Taking a break for author research. It's a given. I say, posing a somewhat unusual question for Ario-sensei. It's not an excuse, but I might be seeing someone who actually does research for the first time. Ario-sensei looked at me as if she had spotted a white crow. Is that so? Well, originally, I'm the type who thoroughly researches and conducts interviews before drawing a story. But this time, the work became a series irregularly and in a hurry. So, I want to go back to basics and do proper research. I'm aware that what comes out from within me isn't all that special, so I have to compensate from the outside. Input before output. I neglected the basics, and there was no way I could create a good manga. I see. I don't really get it, but it sounds good. You might become a worthwhile adversary for me. Ario-sensei nodded in satisfaction. Yes, I'll do my best to become that. But, given that the theme this time is confinement, selecting research subjects and getting appointments might take some time. If it becomes a long-term hiatus, anime adaptation might be impossible anyway. Even so, it's fine. While turning this into an anime is important, what's even more important is to make this work the best it can be. That's my way of showing gratitude to Konata. It's a sign of respect, and it's my wish. Well, you're right. If you'd like, would you like me to introduce you to someone I know? It was unusual for Ario-sensei to hesitate for a while before speaking. Do you really have an acquaintance like that? Yes, actually. In the past, I actually did some interviews along those lines a long time ago. It wasn't so much about kidnapping but more about using Meris as a reference for depicting her as a prisoner of war. I listened to various people's stories but every one of them was too heavy, and I couldn't incorporate them into the main storyline. I couldn't bring it up to the level of entertainment. It was much easier to build it from scratch with imagination. Unlike most authors, I realized at that time that I'm not a research-oriented writer. Ario-sensei's expression looked pained as she said, "To think there were such circumstances behind that iconic scene. Of course, I'm very grateful for your offer, but are you really sure about it? It would be like sending salt to the enemy, you know?" Although it was supposed to be a competition, with so much help being offered, it felt like things were becoming rather casual. It's fine. I mean, the current Omona-sensei isn't as formidable as Takeda Shingen was to Yusuji Kenshin. Not to mention, he's not even at the level of Oda Nobuhisa, let alone the real Takeda. A shounen manga with weak rivals would be boring, wouldn't it? She said this with a confident smile. Sorry, you used a historical reference but I don't know much about the Sengo period. But it was clear to me that I was being treated like a small fish. Is that so? Well, let's put aside the banter. I feel quite apologetic for not being able to bring to light the stories of those who were kidnapped, even after digging deep into their trauma. You see, not everyone can turn such experiences into work like we can. She murmured with a professional and sincere expression once again. In that case, please do teach me, I said as I stood up and bowed deeply. The most unnecessary thing for an ordinary person is excessive pride. I eagerly grasped the extended hand. I didn't feel ashamed about it. All right then. I'll get in touch and send you the list of people who have given their permission later. Well, I should head back now. I have some illustration work for collaboration products piling up. Ario-sensei hopped off the kotatsu table and stretched out widely. Oh, thank you very much. Ario-sensei, you came to motivate me, right? I bowed deeply as I spoke. Motivate? No, not at all. I just wanted to verbally thrash that uppity Omona-sensei, but your nonchalant attitude irritated me, so I said whatever came to mind. The rest is just happenstance and, well, feelings. Ario-sensei shrugged with a puzzled look on her face. It didn't seem like she was at sunder. She appeared to be saying it genuinely. Ahahaha. Seriously, Omona-sensei, aren't you too self-absorbed? I only do things for my own sake. I'm not a loser childhood friend sub-heroine pushing the spineless protagonist who can't confess to the comedic heroine. So don't get the wrong idea. How about that analogy then? You really have a good personality, I said in a tone laced with affectionate irony. A good personality manga artist is boring, you know. It's better to have either a good personality or an exceptionally bad one. Well then, see you later. With just those words, Ario-sensei left the room, humming a tune and skipping along. Despite being the ultimate egoist, there's something strangely endearing about this person. I feel like the secret to creating a captivating character lies in this something. But well, trying to emulate it would be wishful thinking on my part. Sorry, Konata. Even if you end up disliking me, Christmas is cancelled. I have no idea how long the research will take. Even if the research proceeds smoothly, I can't afford to enjoy Christmas when I'm causing inconveniences with my hiatus. In any case, it's confirmed that it will be a tough year-end rush. But that's okay. The anguish of Christmas Eve is not my job. All of that can be left to Christ. Chapter 3, Destiny 3. Kinkan Kankan. Kinkan Kankan. The after-school bell rang, and I left the school building with my bag in hand. I've done it now. I have been feeling down for the past few days. Every time I flushed the toilet, brushed my teeth, and even during this walk home. Every time my mind went blank, regret washed over me. He's a kind person. I should have known he wouldn't be able to refuse when approached like that. Why did I say those things? No, I actually knew why. It's all because of my own weakness. I started to worry that I wasn't deserving of his love in my current state, running away from my desire to become his assistant. I wanted a strong bond to fill the gaps of that anxiety, and I made an easy request. I was wrong. It's an act that tarnishes the emotional bond between us. Sooner or later, he and I are destined to be together, but the first time being the result of such impure motives is definitely not good. Hello. It's been a while. Well, not really. As I walked a little way past the school gate, I heard a grating voice. Do you have business with me? I kept walking without stopping, giving a sidelong glance to the silver-haired figure in a suit. Here we go again. The monster breast samurai editor. There's something else I need to talk to you about other than Omona-sensei. I said it expressionlessly. So, I increased my walking speed, but Haruka followed along, the sound of her business shoes clacking. If she were a man, I would have reported her immediately. No, it's just that the Omona-sensei's writing style has been a bit erratic lately, so I thought Konata-chan might know something about it. You also consider yourself the main sensei's biggest fan, so you must have noticed, naturally. Haruka interjected provocatively, blocking my path. I know. I do know that. I'm not an editor, so I don't really understand things like how well it's received by the public or how the sales are doing. All that business talk is beyond me. But I could clearly tell that his manga had changed. I may not have the knowledge to articulate that sense of dissonance, but I've reread his manga over and over again, so there's no way I wouldn't have noticed. Of course, if he was satisfied with the way things were going, then that's fine by me. But it was clear that wasn't the case. Lately, he clearly hadn't been putting his heart into his manga. When he's really focused, it's natural for him to not even notice when I say something like, "Dinner's ready," but lately, he easily responds and interrupts his work. If he were in his usual form, even if we were on a date, he would have been sketching the people skating or taking photos instead of paying all his attention to me. He's been staying in his room most of the time, and if the problem lies with him, it must have an external cause. In that case, the primary candidate for that cause is me, the one who's closest to him and taking care of him besides myself. If it's because of me that both him and his manga are acting strange, then there's nothing sadder. I don't know. Why don't you ask him directly? But it's frustrating to admit that in front of Haruka, who has known him longer than me. So, I end up telling a lie and avoiding the question. Writers who want to show their weakness to editors don't exist. Editors are not only partners to the writers but also clients. Manga artists are self-employed. Business owners don't want their clients to know their shortcomings. Haruka said that, cornering me against the wall and doing a caped-on wall slam. It's humiliating. I had decided to save my first caped-on for him. Oh, is that so? Anyway, there's no way I'm going to betray him and tell you something. I turned away. This time it's my true feelings. I don't want to share anything about his private life, not even the menu for breakfast today. The more memories that belong only to him and me, the better. Well, that's true. Understood. Haruka surprisingly backs off easily. What's your deal, Muo? Feeling irritated, I clutch my bag to my chest and slip past Haruka to continue walking. Wait. We're not done talking yet. I don't want to hear about the Omona-sensei anymore, so tell me about yourself. Ha! I turned around in surprise at the unexpected question. Oh no. You don't want to talk about the Omona-sensei, do you? In that case, I'm asking you to tell me about what you're dealing with instead. Perhaps indirectly, it might help the Omona-sensei. Haruka takes a step closer, looking down at me with her inscrutable eyes. This makes no sense. Why should I have to tell you about myself? Do I owe you something? I retort, bewildered by this woman's words. There's no particular obligation, but if talking is free, why not? Let's have a little chat at that family restaurant over there. Are you currently struggling with your future career path? You want to be Omona-sensei's assistant, but the concrete path to achieving that goal is unclear, making it seem unrealistic to broach the subject with Omona-sensei, and you're troubled by it. Is that about right? Haruka said in a deliberately mature tone. Why? I'm genuinely surprised as she accurately guesses my inner thoughts with a high degree of accuracy. Excluding the information about my family situation, which Haruka couldn't possibly know, her assessment is almost perfect. Could she possibly be an Esper? Why do I know this? It's just a process of elimination. If you want to get closer to Omona-sensei beyond being just a fan, you have to step into the realm of creation. That leaves you with 3 options: becoming an editor, a creator, or an assistant. You've realized by now, through your experience, that you can't compete with me as an editor. On the other hand, you probably don't intend to become a creator. If you had any plans to become a manga artist or a scriptwriter, you would have had several chances to interact with me as an editor, and you would have shown me 1 or 2 drafts by now. So, by process of elimination, you're left with becoming an assistant. It was an irrefutable argument that left me speechless. As frustrating as it was, Haruka was indeed intelligent, and it made sense why he trusted her. This is infuriating. I stomp my foot in frustration. I'm genuinely angry, not just at Haruka, but at my own shallow mentality, which seems to be easily seen through. Calm down. It wouldn't hurt to join me for a cup of tea or something. There's no reason for us to be in conflict. We both share the awareness that the Omona-sensei can't continue as he is now, and it seems like you don't have an effective solution, do you? So, even if it's a bit dubious, it wouldn't hurt to consider that listening to your troubles aligns with my belief that it could benefit the Omona-sensei. Haruka is thorough and reasonable. All right. Fine. After some hesitation, I reluctantly agreed. I didn't like Haruka, but when it came to discussing the Omona-sensei's work, I couldn't refuse. Honestly, I also had a desire to confide in someone about the turmoil in my heart. If it were just a typical love problem, I could have talked to a friend. However, when it came to the unique world of the manga industry, there were limited people to consult with. Regrettably, when considering that, there was no one more suitable than Haruka as a confidant. We entered a nearby family restaurant and took a seat at a 4-person table. I sat down by the window, diagonally across from Haruka. Order whatever you like. Times have been tough lately, and it's hard to justify expenses, but this one's on me. That's fine. I'll pay for my own. I ordered just the drink bar, while Haruka ordered the drink bar and tempura soba. I'll go get the drink bar for both of us. I told you it's fine. Haruka returned with green tea for herself and herbal tea for me. Well then, with our tea party all set up, shall we hear your story? Haruka said as she lifted a green tea bag from her cup and placed it on a saucer. Fine. But I don't think it'll change anything if I tell you. You won't know until you try. I removed my mask and took a sip of herbal tea to boost my spirits before starting to speak. During this time, Haruka didn't offer any words of agreement or disagreement and simply continued to eat her tempura soba calmly. So, the thing is, I can't afford my own tuition fees, so I have to ask my image-conscious mother, who's all about appearances, to let me attend a manga school that isn't affected by her choice of workplace. I finished my story when the bottom of the teacup became visible. I see. There are certainly aspects I can't help with. I can't really intervene in your personal circumstances or those of your family, Haruka said after finishing her tempura soba and taking a sip of lukewarm green tea. Well, that's how it's going to be. I shrugged my shoulders and put my mask back on. I picked up my bag and stood up. I hadn't had high expectations to begin with, so I wasn't disappointed. You should listen to people's stories to the end. While I can't intervene in your family's circumstances, I can still offer solutions to about half of your troubles. That's the main point here, Haruka said as she wiped her mouth with a paper napkin. What do you mean? I asked, opening my eyes wide and sitting back down. Specifically, we can designate you as a scholarship student, allowing you to attend the manga school for free. Once you've acquired the necessary skills, we are prepared to hire you as our exclusive assistant. In other words, we'll provide you with the persuasive card of being able to advance your education without burdening your parents, with clear prospects for future employment. What? That sounds kind of scary. Is it some sort of scam? It can't be that easy, can it? I leaned back slightly and looked at Haruka skeptically. While I may have been somewhat naive, I still knew the saying there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's like this, you know. Right now, the manga industry is facing a serious shortage of assistants. With the rise of webtoons and the boom in adapting popular online novels into comics, the number of manga works being released has increased dramatically, leading to a shortage of talented assistants. So, our company has partnered with a manga school and is willing to cover the tuition fees to actively secure talent. In return, you would be bound to our company for a certain number of years, restricting your ability to work for other companies. But well, in your case, you probably aren't interested in anything other than being Omona-sensei's assistant, so those additional conditions shouldn't matter. Haruka explained in a calm tone. But isn't the competition ratio for that extremely high? Well, if you're aiming for the admission through the partnership slot, it's considered a special scholarship class, so it'll be tough without some kind of achievement. However, I also have a recommendation slot personally, so if I use that, I can push you in as a scholarship student. Even though I'm relatively experienced at Flare Comics myself. The editorial industry undergoes frequent changes, you know. Haruka stated this without hesitation. It's a very generous offer. But it feels like there's a lot of arrangements being made and it's unsettling. I don't understand why you're going to such lengths for me. It would make sense if it were for him personally, but there's no reason for you to be so concerned about me, right? If you simply want a young person with potential as an assistant, there should be plenty of people who are better at drawing than me. Is there really a reason to choose me? There is. To be blunt, Omona-sensei is currently the best-selling artist in my department, apart from Ario-sensei. So, if something were to go wrong with you and it affected his work, it would be troublesome. Plus, Omona-sensei only works with us, so it's unlikely that you, as one of his followers, would betray us. Haruka said this while flicking through her smartphone at an incredible speed, a gesture that had become as routine as breathing in her daily life. Is it really that calculating? Do editors always think like this? I couldn't help but feel that becoming an editor might not be the right path for me after all. Sometimes, I guess. When you're dealing with manga artists who are constantly pushing the boundaries of deadlines, you naturally develop a certain temperament. Well, setting aside those circumstances, I think you have a personality that's inherently inclined to focus on one thing, and you have the aptitude to acquire the necessary skills. It's also a good impression that you're determined to start as an assistant from the get-go. Usually, people who attend manga school aspire to be manga artists, and even if they take on assistant roles, they see it as a preparatory period leading up to serialization. So, individuals like you who are willing to work as assistants for an extended period are valuable. This time, while running the ballpoint pen across her notebook. I mean, I get the logic behind it, but it's annoying that it feels like you assumed I would accept this deal even before discussing it. I felt a bit like Sun Wukong rolling on the palm of Buddha's hand, having my fate decided for her. Of course, whether or not you accept this offer is entirely up to you. However, if you were to resort to an easy solution of creating a fait accompli with Sensei and making him take responsibility, I would take appropriate countermeasures as well. Haruka raised her head from her notebook and stared at Konata with sharp eyes. What are you suddenly talking about, you perverted woman? Are you saying that big breasts make people lascivious after all? Konata blurted out in an irritated voice. The size of my bust is not much different from yours, I believe. You know, I used to be a high school girl myself, so I understand the kind of thoughts girls your age might have. Besides, people's thought patterns don't vary that much in the first place. Haruka responded calmly, addressing Konata's concerns about her intentions. I shrugged my shoulders in exasperation. So, what's your plan if I were to have such intentions? Legally, there wouldn't be any hindrance if he and I were to enter that kind of relationship. I said this confidently. Well, if I see any signs of that happening, I'll make a move on him before Omona-sensei gets his hands on you. Haruka smirked. Boo-hoo. Strange bubbles come out of the corner of my mouth. That's impossible. You may have met him before me, but I've spent much more time with him. Don't underestimate me. There's no room for you to interfere between him and me. Konata was determined. Besides, I knew that his sense of chastity was strong. For nearly 3 years, no matter how much temptation I had thrown at him, he had remained neutral. I don't know about that. You're probably hoping for a romantic situation where Omona-sensei seduces you, but I'm an adult, so I'll skip the sentimentality and go straight for the grappling. I have a judo black belt, you know. If you do something like that, I'll definitely kill you. As I imagined a scenario where he and this piglet were somehow getting along, I instinctively reached for Haruka's chopsticks. That's terrifying. I think even as someone with black belts in not only judo but also kendo and aikido, you wouldn't be able to beat me. However, before I knew it, my arm, which was searching for a weapon, was caught by her. My joints seemed to be immobilized and I couldn't move a muscle. You really are a pain. I reluctantly withdrew my body and strategically retreated. Ha ha ha, editors are used to being disliked, so a little insult like that doesn't bother me. Well, let's get back on track, Haruka said, clapping her hands as if to start fresh. When you say it, it really doesn't sound like a joke. I stared at Hawker with a jittery look. Anyway, with this, you've run out of excuses for not taking a step forward. Haruka continued as she put her smartphone and planner into her business bag and moved to stand directly in front of her. Now, what will you do? Konata, the biggest fan of our Omona-sensei. Will you accept the scholarship offer? She stood up and extended her hand with her usual infuriating poker face. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Please take care of me. I stammered as I also stood up. Then, I bowed deeply, clenching my teeth tightly. Finally, after taking a deep breath, I firmly grasped her unexpectedly warm hand. Section. Gotcha. I heard the sound of the front door unlocking and I got up from the kotatsu. While I definitely felt the guilt of ruining Christmas with Konata, there was an exhilaration that surpassed it. To put it into words, it might sound like a cliché expression of feeling inspired to create, but there was a passionate feeling that couldn't be expressed with such formal words surging within me. Creatives, as beings, cannot resist this impulse. I wanted to apologize to Konata and convey my feelings as soon as possible, so I hurriedly made my way. I reached for the doorknob that connected the room to the kitchen. I'm home. We're welcome back. We came face to face. Both of us spoke simultaneously. You first. No, please, you go ahead. I have a few things I need to say. I extended my palm upward, gesturing for her to go first. But it might take me a while. After a few rounds of similar exchanges, Konata finally gave in. I wondered what she wanted to report. She had gone to the trouble of taking off her mask, so it must be something important. I held my breath. All right. So, here's the thing. After I graduate from high school, I plan to attend a manga specialized school. I want to acquire the skills of an assistant that can be of use to you. She raised her face and looked straight into my eyes. Her words were filled with unwavering determination. I see. You've decided on your career path. That's great. I replied with enthusiasm at the unexpected good news. It was wonderful that Konata had found her own goal, and it made me even happier to know that it was for my benefit. So I'll go and inform my parents about it soon. Yeah. It must be tough considering your family situation. Realizing the complexity of Konata's family circumstances, I would be willing to help with the tuition fees, but Konata probably wouldn't accept it. No worries about that. Haruka will recommend me as a scholarship student, so I won't have to worry about tuition fees. Flare Comics is also willing to act as a guarantor. As I was thinking this, another surprise report came in. Seriously? Haruka-san really cares about you. She's amazing. I nodded in admiration. In the manga industry, even though it's vast, it's rare to find an editor as caring as her. I'll stick with her for life. Anyway, that's the situation, so even if my parents oppose it and don't give their permission, my career path won't change. Got it. If it's about manga, I think I can offer advice, so feel free to ask me anything. I said, pounding my chest with confidence. So, I have a question, or rather, a favor to ask right away. What is it? That's perfectly fine, but do you plan to cover your living expenses yourself? Do you have a part-time job lined up? For a while, Haruka will treat me as an intern and arrange part-time jobs within Flare Comics. So, I'm thinking that as I gain experience and improve my assistant skills, I'll be able to earn money by working in various positions. I see. It's a practical plan. I'm a bit concerned about the assistant part, though. To be honest, There are some manga artists who are not the most socially adept, so I worry about issues like harassment. However, with Haruka overseeing things, I trust her judgment when it comes to selecting the right people. And if push comes to shove, I can always hire someone myself. In that case, I'm relieved. Oh, wait a moment. Confused, Konata tilted her head as I turned my back to her and rushed into the room. From a storage unit, I retrieved a box with a dial lock, where I kept important documents such as publishing contracts. I unlocked it and took out a white envelope with a thickness of about 1 centimeter. It was just below the threshold for gift tax. This is a bit premature, but consider it a celebration of your future endeavors. Please use it, I said, rushing back and handing the envelope to Konata. No way. I can't accept something like this. The white envelope glowed in the evening sun, and as Konata glanced at the stack of 10,000 yen bills inside, she shook her head repeatedly. No, please accept it. This is a rightful reward for all your hard work until now. Actually, I've been setting aside a portion of my earnings every month, albeit roughly. Cooking, laundry, cleaning, those were all substantial contributions. My confinement to Konata, while not something I could openly discuss, could be considered a form of cooperation for my research. Regardless of how close our relationship was, if you don't provide fair compensation for labor, it's exploitation. I'm not doing this with that intention. She pouted. I know. I've been grateful for what you've done so far, and I didn't want to put a monetary value on your goodwill. That's why I've been happily relying on your assistance. So, regardless of your chosen career path, I had planned to give this as a congratulatory gift when you graduate. Without hesitation, I continued. But, I'm begging you, please don't hesitate and accept it. Otherwise, I won't feel at ease. Besides, it might seem like a significant amount because it's approximately 3 years' worth, but when you calculate it as an hourly wage, it's quite modest. In this day and age, if you're aiming to be an assistant, you'll probably need digital drawing equipment, right? A computer, a drawing tablet, and illustration software are essential, and they can be quite expensive. Even as a scholarship student, they probably won't provide equipment like that. You'll also need money for reference books, and having some savings beforehand is always a good idea. I insisted, pushing the envelope into Konata's chest. Even as a scholarship student, they probably wouldn't cover equipment expenses like that. I had also considered that if Konata were to go to college or enter the workforce like most people, it might not be necessary for her to accept the money right away. Giving a lump sum of money all at once felt somewhat like a severance package, and it had a businesslike and impersonal quality to it. In such a case, I had contemplated giving it to her in small increments during various events throughout the year. However, given the current situation, I really wanted her to accept it. All right, I'll take it. Sensei, you really are an adult after all. She finally received the envelope and muttered with a mixture of loneliness and respect. Of course. Even though I may not look like it, I handle my own tax returns, you know? I kept the fact that real successful artists typically delegate that to a tax accountant a secret. Thank you. So, what about your situation? Konata asked after carefully placing the envelope in her bag, tilting her head. Well, about that. I didn't know what expression to wear when broaching the topic. It was the Christmas night when Konata gathered the courage to invite me. I wanted to celebrate her decision on her career path as well. Despite my guilt, her confession had only strengthened my resolve. Even if my current serialization were to fail as a result of my temporary absence for interviews, I needed to take on this challenge to ensure that I would continue to be a frontline manga artist by the time Konata graduated from manga school. What's wrong? Actually, it's more like good news, I guess. No, but I feel sorry for Konata. Anyway, I apologize. We won't be able to spend Christmas together. I bowed deeply, pressing my forehead against the floor. Hey, what's all this sudden bowing? Explain yourself. I have to discard this week's manuscript because it's just terrible. It won't do as it is. In order to improve the quality of my work, I have to go on a research trip. That's why I can't afford to celebrate Christmas. It's a busy time at the end of the year, so of course, I'll do remote interviews for those who request them. But if the other party accepts, I'd like to go there in person for the interview. I think it's the least I can do to show my sincerity. I see. I understand. Do your best. Is that all? Surprised by the unexpectedly casual response, I raised my head. Konata's expression was different from any I had imagined. It wasn't a disappointed crying face for having expectations betrayed, an angry face for a heartless decision, or an emotionless face holding everything back. Konata was smiling. It wasn't a forced smile out of concern for me, it was a genuine smile of joy. This was perhaps the happiest I had seen Konata since the serialization was decided. Yeah, but... Oh, should I make a bento? Konata clapped her hands as if she had just remembered. No, it's not about that. Aren't you angry? Why should I be angry when you're doing what you need to do for your manga? Konata tilted their head with a puzzled expression. I see. But usually, even if you're not angry, you'd be in a bad mood. Why are you so cheerful? It's a secret. Konata murmured briefly, pressing her index finger to her lips. No, no, no. What's that? Ha! Seriously, what does that mean? I stopped bowing and sat cross-legged, arms folded. I'll make dinner. Konata ignored my question and turned her back to me, heading towards the kitchen. Soon, I could hear a humming. It was an instrumental version of a winter nursery rhyme. Well, maybe I shouldn't claim to be an adult yet. After all, even though I've grown older, I still don't understand a thing about the female heart. Chapter 3.2, Week 3. Sunday. The unreserved seats on the Shinkansen were filling up from the E-seat side. Oh right, the side with Mount Fuji view is over there. It's been a while since I've been on the Shinkansen, so I forgot. Seated on the opposite side in the A-seats, I, dressed in an unfamiliar suit after a long time, ate a shumai bento while pondering vaguely. Come to think of it, it's been a few years since the current serialization started and I haven't left the Kanto region. Ping. The icon of the messenger app on my smartphone, placed on the seat table, started blinking. Are you around Yokohama now? Yes. I replied by pressing the predictive text feature with my left hand. When I was getting ready for the research trip, Konata strongly urged me to install an app on my smartphone that allowed me to share my location information. At first, she showed some reluctance, thinking that she wasn't a child anymore. However, I repeatedly pleaded with her for safety reasons, and in the end, she gave in. As a return gesture, I also gained the right to monitor Konata's location, but I didn't use it much. Well, right now. Oh, I see. Konata must be at her parents' house already. As if remembering, I opened the location app, and the point representing Konata was stationary at a certain upscale condominium. Konata was also gearing up for the impending battle. What's your destination station? That's a secret. Is the person you're meeting today a woman? That's also a secret. Secrecy of sources is a fundamental principle in journalism. I may not be a journalist, but I understand that much. Just in case, set this as your wallpaper. An image was sent to me. It was a selfie of Konata wearing a bathrobe. She had a white towel wrapped triangularly around her head, with 3 pencils inserted between the towel and her head. One on each side and one on the forehead. What is this? Cosplaying as a rhinoceros beetle? But even then, I don't quite get the meaning of the bathrobe. It's Konata we're talking about, so it's probably something related to the occult, but I don't really understand it. Anyway, I don't want to be seen with a weird wallpaper and have the subject of my interview think I'm being disrespectful, so I'll pass on this one. I won't do that. But do your best. I typed only that and closed the messenger app. I'll turn off the location app. And turn off the phone. To ensure that the subject of the interview wouldn't be identified, I held down the power button on my smartphone. Well, no matter how it goes, I hope Konata can resolve the frustration she's been carrying and put an end to it. It would be best if the discussion goes well and leads to reconciliation, but the world isn't that forgiving. The idea that just because they're family, they can understand each other is now a cliché, even in fiction. Even if it ends in disappointment, it's not meaningless. The act of making a decision, taking action, and expressing one's feelings, That in itself is a proof of existence and a source of self-esteem. I hope her courage will be rewarded. Even without relying on a smartphone, I believe that our hearts are connected. Chapter 4, Destiny 4. Well, whatever. The curse is already in effect once the image reaches him. I looked at the Messenger app's response from him and placed my smartphone on the table. The outfit in the picture could be described as a simplified version of the Ushi no Kokumeri ritual, commonly known as the curse where a jealous woman nails a straw doll to a sacred tree. However, since I was the legitimate wife in this situation, I was the one who would be envied, not the one doing the envying. Therefore, there was no need for me to sneak into the shrine late at night, which is why this was more of a precaution than a genuine curse. In boxing terms, it was just a jab. Hence, the attire for this was a simplified version. Gotcha. Without a word of, "I'm back," my mother returned. I could immediately tell from the strong scent of high-end brand perfume. I rarely communicated with my mother on a regular basis, but every Sunday, my mother would definitely come back to check the mail, making this the most reliable time to catch her. "I have something I want to talk about." I spoke to my mother, who headed straight for the refrigerator without saying a word. My mother gave her a lazy glance. "I've decided on my future career path, so I thought I should let you know." Getting straight to the point. As a minimum courtesy, I turned my body toward my mother, but I wasn't looking at her. Right now, the image dominating my mind was his face when he told me, "I'm going on a reporting trip." He had such a nice expression. That was definitely the face of the person I had fallen for. I reminisced about my encounter with him. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't remember that moment exactly. He had once been nothing more than a background on her route to school. It was at that family restaurant along the route where I had spoken with Haruka. He used to draw manga there every day, before the social climate became such that people were still afraid to go out. In the first place, he didn't have any particularly attention-grabbing fashion sense or exceptionally attractive looks. If anything, he had a rather plain appearance. So, it took a while for me to notice him. I only really recognized him after she could no longer attend school. During the time when I tried to go to school but couldn't, living a life where I'd start for school but turn back halfway. Caught in a sudden rain shower, I had entered the family restaurant for temporary shelter. I had intended to go to school once the rain stopped, but even after the rain had cleared and a rainbow appeared in the sky, she still couldn't bring herself to leave. As a result, I ended up spending the entire day in the family restaurant. I had idly played with her smartphone, and when the battery finally ran out, I reluctantly decided it was time to go back. That was when, finally, truly, I noticed the presence of him. He seemed to have decided to linger longer than even I did. Even so, if he had just been an ordinary man working at the family restaurant, I probably wouldn't have taken any interest in him. What caught my attention more than anything else was his expression. There were limited patterns of expressions among customers in the family restaurant. Most solo customers maintained a blank expression, almost as if building a wall around themselves, while families or groups of friends appeared cheerful. Surrounded by people who displayed either zero emotions or carefully curated positive ones, his face, as he stared at his tablet, was neither of those. For most of the time he spent at the family restaurant, he wore an expression that seemed on the verge of tears or groaning in agony. It wasn't the fleeting display of emotions that couples might show when having a heated argument, where they cry or get angry. His anguish ran deeper and was quiet. "If you don't like it, you should just leave." I thought that while layering my own incompetence on top of it. Eventually, I began occupying a seat at the back of the family restaurant, even before he arrived. At that time, I believed I hadn't fallen in love yet. Instead, I felt like she was observing him driven by a malicious motive, wanting to confirm that everyone, just like me, was a weak human who would run away when faced with something difficult. But he never ran away. He always came at the exact same time and continued to face his tablet late into the night. Feeling a sense of defeat on my own, I stubbornly waited for the moment when he would lose. No matter how long I waited, that moment never came, and I eventually grew impatient. I couldn't help but wonder what he was so desperately focused on. So, pretending to go to the drink bar, I stole a glance at his tablet as I passed behind him. My eyes were immediately captivated. The sight of an infinite world being created from just a single pen was truly magical. However, he would erase the world he had painstakingly created with a single touch, for some reason displeased with it. Cruel, fleeting, and beautiful. I realized that this was the fate of a manga artist, his profession. The pain of creation. In other words, it could be summed up in just 6 simple kanji. However, that suffering came with a cosmic sense of scale, like the 7 days of creation in Genesis. Being a manga artist meant creating an entirely new world, so it wasn't an exaggeration. Moreover, even God rested on the 7th day, but there was no rest in his labor. Perhaps he was always thinking about manga. Unlike a regular job, he couldn't switch it on and off, so I was sure that even while eating, rushing to the toilet, or taking a shower, manga was lurking in the corner of his mind. Hang in there. Before I knew it, I had started cheering for him in my heart. In a world full of unfairness, I wanted his suffering and sadness to be rewarded. I persevered for a month, and finally, the moment arrived. For the first time since I began observing him, he smiled. And I fell in love. It wasn't because his smile was too dazzling. His eyes still looked like they were about to tear up, his cheeks twitched with confusion, and yet, his mouth had a wry smile. It was such a pitiful smile. To put it in perspective, it was like a wild jackal, hungry and roaming the savannah for 3 days and 3 nights, unable to find a meal. His companions fell one by one, leaving him alone. Finally, he spotted prey much larger than himself, a buffalo. Even if he pounced on it, he might get kicked and killed. It was a situation like that. It was scary, lonely, and reckless, and I knew it. But I couldn't help but go for it. His smile carried that sense of urgency. He wasn't as cool as a cheetah, didn't have the composure of a lion, and wasn't as graceful as a hawk. But he hadn't lost the pride of a carnivore. His fragile yet strong smile felt more precious to me than anything else. I wanted to know more about him, so I gradually started sitting closer to him. That wasn't enough, so I even tried to get his attention by ordering the same menu items as him. But when he entered his creative mode, his concentration was astounding, and naturally, I wasn't in his thoughts. It was a bit disappointing, but at the same time, it was a relief. During the time when I was a school refuser, other people's eyes were nothing but terrifying to me. I was worried when he stopped coming to the family restaurant. Since the time when masks became standard attire for the Japanese people, he stopped showing up at the family restaurant. Fortunately, due to his lax information management, I was able to find out various things about him. Otherwise, we might not have been able to meet again. I'm sure he's still working hard with that same expression on his face. Thinking that way, the grudges I was holding on to seemed trivial. His reporting would definitely go well. Because he's someone who can't tell lies. That sincere expression of his always touches people's hearts. So, the publishing company will act as the guarantor, and I've also secured accommodation, so it won't cause any inconvenience. I said as my report concluded while my mother poured coffee and checked documents. It didn't take even 10 minutes. Since I was the one doing all the talking, it was only natural. All right. Do as you please. Those were the first and last words my mother uttered after listening to my story. That's what I'll do. It didn't turn into a grand reconciliation between mother and child. However, there was no opposition as I had expected. I might have vilified her too much. Maybe I amplified the negative image in my mind. Considering how she had put me into Sakuraba, I had thought she might say something like, "You have to go to the University of Tokyo or Kyoto University, or I won't accept it." But she didn't say anything like that at all. She was certainly someone who cared about appearances, but it wasn't an active desire to show off and assert dominance to others. It seemed to be more of a passive self-preservation. In other words, she simply didn't want the responsibility of raising a daughter. It was frustrating, but I knew that half of my genetic material was hers, so I somehow understood. I would become an adult and leave this house. And the responsibility would fall on the publishing company, on him, and above all, on myself. As a mother, it seemed that she considered herself released from the responsibilities of a caregiver due to this fact, and she was fine with it. She was never a good mother. I have no memories of eating her home-cooked meals. She never attended any of my school events, and she never even wished me a happy birthday. But she wasn't neglectful to the point of outright abandonment, and she didn't bring men into the house or use her child as an accessory to show off to others. In other words, maybe she was just that kind of person. I guess it's okay now. I naturally felt that way. I no longer had the attachment to confirm whether my speculations were correct or not when it came to my mother. My feelings were about evenly split between forgiving and giving up. Perhaps my mother felt the same way. For her, I probably wasn't the ideal daughter either. No, perhaps she never even had an ideal for her daughter in the first place. In any case, the resentment I once harbored towards her, which used to occupy a significant portion of my heart, had disappeared without me realizing it. That much was certain. Eventually, my mother touched up her makeup and left the house as if nothing had happened. But that no longer mattered. I didn't have the mental resources to spare for such things anymore. There were plenty of other things to think about. I want to be an assistant, so maybe I can put off learning how to create stories for now. But what about drawing, panel layouts, backgrounds? Where should I start? Maybe I should ask him. No, I should probably study on my own first. I felt a bit anxious about whether I could do it. I'm not very skilled. But I'll do it. I have to, and I want to. Maybe I should do some cleaning before I go. A departing bird leaves no trace. I washed the coffee cup my mother had left behind and made the kitchen area sparkling clean. As the dirt flowed down the drain, it felt like my 18 years of resentment were being washed away along with it. I might be wearing a similar expression to his right now. Looking at my reflection in the sink, a face that couldn't be described as sadness, anxiety, or joy, I felt like I could start to like it a little. Chapter 4.2, Week 4. I had some free time to think about things other than my serialization, even though it was almost the end of the year. It was the night a few days before New Year's Eve. The overly sweet Christmas mood had long disappeared from the streets, and the busy atmosphere of the year-end had taken over. But, no matter how the world may be, it didn't matter much to me as a manga artist. I could work whenever I liked and take breaks whenever I wanted. It was one of the few benefits of being a freelancer in an unstable profession where I couldn't even take out a loan. My own room. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Crackers made a satisfying sound. It was an out-of-season Christmas celebration to commemorate the start of the winter vacation period for Konata, which had become even more valuable as the cold weather intensified, and the kotatsu became even more appreciated. On the table, there were 2 slices of shortcake. They weren't for Christmas, nor were they made by a pastry chef. They were products from a certain well-known bread manufacturer available year-round through factory production. Under the electric light, the oil from the fried chicken, available year-round as well, glistened. Only the discounted Chardonnay managed to somewhat convey a sense of Christmas. A name brand of a wine. Congratulations on the anime adaptation, Konata said as she poured the Chardonnay into a wine glass. Bubbles playfully popped in the plastic wine glass she had bought at a 100 yen store. Ah, thank you. Well, it's still at the stage of a tentative agreement, I replied as I poured wine back into Konata's glass. I had managed to keep my hiatus to just 1 week and was able to submit a new manuscript based on my research. So far, things were going well. Pre-orders for the new volume had increased, and the previous volumes were getting reprints. It seemed like we had surpassed the minimum threshold that the editorial department and the Animace investors were hoping for. SNS is buzzing about your manga too, you know. Look, even internet articles. They say, IT's not just fantasy and romantic comedy. It's a new frontier with you. Konata exclaimed excitedly, showing me her smartphone screen. The reviews are mixed, as expected. I poke my fork into my shortcake strawberry and smile. It seemed like Konata was highlighting only the positive feedback, but there were just as many negative reactions. My current style was a bit different from what I had done before, and I had incorporated some rather explicit and edgy elements, which was quite unusual for a shounen magazine. That was to be expected. Erotic and gory content had become a trend in recent manga to some extent, but I didn't include such graphic depictions just to grab attention. In fact, I was not particularly skilled in depicting explicit or suspenseful scenes, and even during times when I struggled to secure a new serialization, I had avoided those kinds of projects. Nevertheless, I ended up including them because, based on my research, I found that they were essential elements for the story, and I had no choice but to include them. Of course, I received a torrent of warnings from the proofreaders, and it seems there was a bit of an issue within the editorial department as well. I'm not one to brag, but I'm generally obedient to the editorial team's suggestions, and I would have probably retracted it immediately if it had been any other time. But this time, I couldn't back down. The reason being that the content of the latest serialized chapter wasn't just my imagination, it was heavily based on the real-life experiences of the people I had interviewed. Omitting its seriousness was out of the question. I thought compromising here would be disrespectful to the people who had cooperated with me on the interviews. In the end, with Haruka's hard work, we managed to publish it with almost no revisions. Though we succeeded in the short term, the long-term impact remains uncertain. This challenge I undertook carries the risk of alienating fans of the series that was already there. However, even if this week's chapter shortens the lifespan of the series, I won't regret it. I can say that with certainty. But I'm sure there are more supporters than complainers. After all, we beat Foria in the surveys, didn't we? Konata reached under the Kotatsu futon and pulled out this week's issue of Flare Comics, tapping her finger on the cover where the word Foria was displayed. According to Haruka-san, it seems like that in the preliminary reports. Well, it's more like a Ryo-sensei let us win, but, well, a win is a win, right? Trying to convince myself and took a sip of the Chardonnay to cover her embarrassment. Of course, without a Ryo-sensei's assistance in arranging interviews, this week's chapter wouldn't have existed in the first place. Not only that, after this week's issue was released, a Ryo-sensei was the first to react to my serialization, tweeting, "I can't draw something like this." I lost indirectly promoting my work. She could be arrogant at times, but her humility in situations like this felt unfair. Knowing a Ryo-sensei's genuine personality, it was clear she truly meant what she wrote, which only emphasized the difference in our characters. She said she lost, but from my perspective, it's more like I won the match but lost the competition. Well, to begin with, trying to compete with a Ryo-sensei was presumptuous on my part, and I realized that I just can't measure up to her. But even for ordinary people, there are things that only ordinary people can draw. She would continue to be a genius and I would remain an ordinary person for the rest of my life. However, even ordinary people have their own ways of fighting. Drawing this week's serialized chapter, I felt like I had grasped a bit of that technique. You should celebrate more openly. You're an amazing person, and I can guarantee that. Konata declared, but then she seemed to become a little embarrassed and started eating her shortcake in silence. She ate in a unique way, meticulously carving the area around the strawberry into a circular shape, reminiscent of playing with fallen sticks in a sandbox. Thank you. I mean, not just about me, but I'd like to hear about your side of things too. Have things settled with various matters and your family? I asked, a bit shyly. From Konata's demeanor, I could tell that the outcome of her family discussions hadn't been unfavorable. However, I had been busy finishing up the serialization until today, so I hadn't had a chance to hear the details. I got permission. They said, do as you like. Konata replied casually. Her words were devoid of hesitation. I see. Congratulations. Feel free to use any of the materials I have. Keep up the good work. I applauded, offering my congratulations. I had had a feeling that things were heading in that direction, but hearing it directly from Konata's mouth brought relief. Thank you. I'll do my best to be of help to you as soon as possible, she said, emptying her wine glass in one go. I see. In that case, I need to work hard too, at least until you graduate from school, so I can proudly call myself a manga artist with enough achievements, I declared as I took a bite of fried chicken, renewing my determination. It would be pretty embarrassing if Konata, who had learned the skills to become my assistant, had no manga to assist me with. Don't worry. If your manga ever stops selling, I'll become your assistant and support you, Konata said with determination as she speared the last strawberry on her fork and brought it to her mouth. I appreciate the sentiment, but if it ever comes to that, I'd rather work as an assistant for a Ryo-sensei or someone like her and earn a living. And, there's something I want to give you, if that's okay. It's not exactly a Christmas present, though, I said as a prelude, using a paper napkin to wipe my hands stained with fried chicken oil. I'm sorry. I didn't prepare anything, Konata said with a regretful tone, bowing her head. No, don't apologize. I cancelled Christmas on my own, so it's only natural that you didn't prepare anything. Besides, it's not even a proper gift. I just want to give it to you. Honestly, I'm not sure if you'll like it or not. Will you accept it? I asked as I retrieved a small box wrapped with a ribbon from my jeans pocket. It was something very dear to me, but to the person receiving it, it might just be worthless junk. That's the kind of gift it was. I wonder if Konata will accept it. Chapter 5, Destiny 5. I'm so sorry. I haven't prepared anything. Reflexively, I bowed my head. I actually wanted to prepare a gift for him, but he seemed busy and the situation with his serialized manuscript completion was unstable, so I deliberately didn't prepare anything. If I gave him a present at a strange moment, it would only add unnecessary worry to him. Knowing that he was the type who would feel obligated to return the favor if I gave him a gift, especially during busy times, I didn't want to trouble him. I completely misjudged. I should have gone to buy a gift as soon as I found out that his latest serialized chapter was completed. But a surprise might be a little mean. Even if he had told me even this morning, I could have pulled off something as cliché as putting on a ribbon and saying eat me instead of underwear. No, don't apologize. I cancelled Christmas from my side, so it's only natural that you haven't prepared a gift. Besides, even if I call it a present, it's just something I want to give you on a whim, and honestly, I don't know if you'll appreciate it. Will you still accept it? No way. Could it be? Already. I held my breath. He scratched his head and, looking a bit embarrassed, took a small box out of his pocket. I wasn't so clueless that I couldn't understand the meaning of that. Yes. I nodded quietly. Contrary to my actions, my heartbeat was racing to the extreme. An engagement ring. It's definitely 100% an engagement ring. It must be. I couldn't think of anything else. I had reached adulthood. Choosing the path of becoming one with him as an assistant, we had made that decision. Furthermore, I had just told him that my mother had said, "Do as you like," which was essentially equivalent to receiving permission for marriage. There were no obstacles now preventing us from being together. The conditions were completely in place. That's great. Here, he said curtly, extending the small box with one hand. Thank you, I replied, accepting it with both hands. I didn't expect him to be this proactive. I need to adjust my plans. In my imagination, I thought it would take a bit more time for him to propose, considering his reserved nature. I would experience various firsts by the time I graduated from manga school, then we would marry immediately after graduation. After that, I would work as his assistant for a few years. The romantic comedy manga genre is not the type that can be continued indefinitely, so it concluded beautifully and to great acclaim. Around that time, I became pregnant. I was planning to give birth to our first child during the period when he was brainstorming for his new project and recharging. But a student marriage? That's perfectly fine, actually. No, it's quite good, in fact. I'm going to be busy from now on. Compared to others aspiring in the industry, I'm starting quite late, so I have to work hard to catch up. I have to put in effort not only during school but also outside of it if I want to keep up. In doing so, there will inevitably be more empty moments when I can't be by his side. In those moments, the likelihood of strange temptations creeping in for him would be hard to avoid. But having the established fact of marriage would bring reassurance. Marriage is essentially a contract to fulfill each other's fidelity obligations. If this is achieved, at the very least, there would be no possibility of him cheating. When it comes to advances from women, there are some who don't care even if you're married, or rather, find it enjoyable to steal someone else's partner, so I can't be completely at ease. But with women who have a proper sense of ethics, like that Holstein editor, it should work effectively. I should buy an engagement ring as a return gift for him today. I want something really eye-catching. It will serve as a deterrent. Of course, it must have some kind of magical effect. Maybe I should go with a Solomon's ring. No, that's lacking in love. Instead, I could order a silver ring and have runic engravings on the inside myself. Aren't you going to open it? He asked, sending an anxious glance my way. I will. I just needed a moment to prepare myself. I untied the ribbon. With determination, I grasped the lid between my index finger and thumb. Dear bride. Parker. I opened the lid. There, a radiant future for both of us awaited. What is this? There is none. No, it's not there. Inside the small box, there was no engagement ring. Instead, there was the tip of a G-pen. A dull golden titanium pen emitted a faint sheen. Oh, right. I guess I should explain. That's the pen I used until I switched to digital. It was with me when I drew my first manga and when I got my first serialized work with Flare Comics. It's like a lucky charm for me, and I've cherished it. I thought maybe it would bring creative power to you too, he said, speaking eloquently with the sparkle of a boyish look in his eyes. Is that so? Hey, are you okay, Konata? You're not mad or anything, right? I'm not mad. Ah, I guess I really lacked in taste, right? I'm sorry. I was working late into the night until the last minute and then I just slept. That's why I didn't have time to go buy a gift. I thought about preparing something today, but I figured it's better to give something heartfelt that I have rather than just buying something random. But yeah, I know a G-pen tip is pretty much useless nowadays. He turned red and hung his head in dismay. That's why I'm not mad. I'm happy. I closed the lid of the small box and carefully put it in my pouch. Really? He asked, still uncertain. Really? I replied instantly and reached for the fried chicken. It was rib meat, with lots of small bones to crunch on. I conveyed my words to him with utmost sincerity. It was definitely not a lie. I was genuinely happy with this gift. After all, in a way, it contained feelings even warmer than a proposal. Moreover, even though there were many fans of our work worldwide, I was the only one who possessed this precious treasure. It was truly a fan's privilege. I was extremely grateful. But maybe being just a fan isn't enough anymore. As if trying to hide the luxurious desire that had sprouted in a corner of my heart, I continued to devour the fried chicken. Epilogue: the tale of a manga artist who was kidnapped by a stranger on the first day. I ate toshikoshi soba on New Year's Eve, but I didn't stay up late. We did a New Year's countdown just in case, but as soon as the New Year arrived, we went to bed. We woke up before sunrise and took a crowded train to get off at the station with the highest number of passengers in Japan. The area in front of the station was bustling with people who seemed to have the same purpose as us. The crowds are intoxicating. Yeah, I haven't been going out of my way to take the train for Hatsumode recently. I hadn't been doing Hatsumode itself, and if I did, it was after the first 3 days of the new year. When you're alone, you tend to become unfamiliar with these events. But this year, I'm starting to make moves towards the anime adaptation, and Konata is starting a new chapter by enrolling in manga school, so we decided to properly do Hatsumode since it's a significant year for both of us. I feel like I might get lost. Well, should we hold hands so we don't get separated? I mean, there's no deeper meaning to it, but it's the beginning of the year and I'd rather avoid any trouble, right? I stammered out my words as I extended my left hand. Sure. Konata firmly grasped my hand in return. Walking together, we leisurely strolled, savoring the tranquil New Year's atmosphere. After a while, we arrived at a shrine located in the heart of the bustling metropolis, nestled between tall buildings. A bright red torii gate stood resplendent, bathed in the pure morning sunlight. The shrine grounds were even more crowded than the station area. This shrine is amazing, isn't it? The contrast between the urban buildings and the historical architecture is striking. Oh, and for reference, I took out my smartphone from my down jacket and snapped a few pictures. Someone's coming. Konata tugged at my hand, warning me. Oh, sorry. Hey, isn't that a Ryo-sensei? Thank you for your hard work. Happy New Year. I withdrew my smartphone and cleared a path. Among the group of people passing by, I spotted a familiar face. Oh, it's Omona-sensei. Happy New Year. Is this a coincidence, or destiny? Are we in a fate-sharing community? She exclaimed with excitement. This was probably the result of staying up all night. Ario-sensei was dressed in an elegant and expensive-looking furosode kimono. Her assistants surrounded her like a security detail. I secretly thought that the scene resembled a family outing for the Shichigo-san festival. A day of prayer for the healthy growth of young children. Shichigo-san literally means 7, 5, 3. In most regions around the country, boys and girls aged 3, boys aged 5, and girls aged 7 visit a Shinto shrine with their parents. Well, in a way, we might be in a fate-sharing community. Not just in the sense of the manga industry as a whole, but also among the serialized artists at Flare Comics. It's not entirely inaccurate to say we share our fates in some respects. This shrine was famous for its blessings related to the entertainment industry, so it attracted many creators as visitors. While it was somewhat coincidental that our visit coincided with hers, it wasn't particularly surprising for two different groups to choose the same location for their New Year's visit. I think I'm the one who's in this together, Konata said, leaning her head against my shoulder. Konata-chan, it's been a while, or rather, is this our first time meeting in person? Should I offer a handshake or an autograph? I'll pass. I am his fan, but I'm not particularly a fan of yours. Konata shook her head. Ah, so that means Omona-sensei already trained you, right? Ichi. Just be careful of any home searches. Ario-sensei said, putting a hand to her mouth and giving me a sharp look. That was quite an accusation. In fact, wasn't it me who had been confined by Konata? Shouldn't I be the one claiming to be trained? Well, Konata is already an adult, and she hasn't done anything that would break the law. Ario-sensei, on the other hand, if you were to get lost, you might end up becoming a police matter for taking care of a lost child. Do you have something to prove that you're an adult? I retorted playfully. Deep down, I wasn't really angry, and I even felt a bit disrespectful toward the legendary manga artist. However, Ario-sensei, given the constant reverence she received from those around her, seemed to appreciate having an equal relationship where we could banter like this. You're not holding back, are you? You're getting a bit carried away. Don't think for a second that you've beaten me just because you once outperformed me in a survey, she exclaimed and raised both middle fingers. Oh, I might have touched a nerve. I may have hit the nail on the head a bit too accurately. Both of you, please be quiet in front of the gods. A calm, admonishing voice came. Turning around, I saw another familiar face. Haruka-san, Happy New Year. I took a few steps back from the shrine path to avoid disrupting other worshippers. Then, I let go of Konata's hand for a moment to bow in greeting. Konata followed suit, bowing her head, and then immediately held my hand again. Yes, Happy New Year. I look forward to working with you this year as well. She responded with a gesture that exuded a sense of elegance. She was wearing a kimono, but unlike Ario-sensei's glamorous furosode, she had on a more subdued and everyday-style kimono, which surprisingly suited her and gave her a cool aura. Haruka-san, do you always come here for New Year's? Yes. Rather than just for New Year's, I visit here every morning unless I'm exceptionally busy. It's like a daily routine or a way to reset my mind. That's really nice. It seemed like a perfect routine for someone like Haruka who had an appreciation for Japanese culture. Happy New Year. Haruka, kimonos really suit you, don't they? With your silver hair, you could pass for a catchy editor who effortlessly pulls off wearing a kimono, maybe even the protagonist herself. Oh, by the way, can I take some photos for reference? In response to Ario-sensei's words, one of her assistants immediately lifted a DSLR camera hanging from her neck. It appeared that they kept it on hand at all times for impromptu photography. Happy New Year. Feel free to take as many photos as you need for your manga. However, more importantly, Ario-sensei, are you okay with your manuscript right after the New Year? Haruka-san asked with a sharp look in her eyes. Ah, that. Yeah. About that. Probably, it'll be fine. I need to reclaim the throne of Flare Comics from Omona-sensei, so I've been putting a lot of effort into it. It might take a little longer, but I think I'll make it. Ario-sensei replied, shifting her gaze towards the day after tomorrow. If it results in a good manuscript, I have no objections as an editor. However, due to recent changes in working conditions and the influence of labor reform, it's becoming difficult to ask too much from the printing company. Pushing things to the very last minute might not be ideal, Haruka-san said, her tone soft but carrying an underlying sense of pressure. Yeah, of course. It's a good thing that the industry's black practices are improving. By the way, Omono-sensei, why are you so nonchalant about it? With the 1-week hiatus you took recently, your schedule must be incredibly tight, right? She suddenly changed the subject and directed it towards me. She's trying to shift her frustration onto me, isn't she? I'm basically a good student, you know? I've already caught up with my pace. I've even finished the storyboard. In fact, if I weren't on track, I wouldn't have gone to the trouble of taking a train to visit the shrine for New Year's. My nerves weren't strong enough to procrastinate and play around until the very last deadline. That being said, Omono-sensei, I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but there's a situation. The serialized manga that was scheduled for a cover color page in the next issue had to be put on hiatus. We were wondering if you could take it on instead. Haruka-san turned towards me and began explaining apologetically. What? Seriously? It's a sudden request, so I won't push it if it's not possible. However, the editor-in-chief is hoping to build momentum for a media mix, and there have even been suggestions of expanding the page count and creating a special feature. But that would be quite challenging, wouldn't it? Haruka-san looked at me with pleading eyes. I could refuse, given the circumstances, but I did owe the entire editorial team a favor from the previous publication. I probably received some complaints and I did inconvenience them by missing a deadline before. I can't really refuse this, can I? Yes, I'll do my best, I said with a sigh, nodding. Thank you. I'll let them know. For an editor, it's the best New Year's gift, Haruka-san said, scrolling through her smartphone with a big smile. It seems like this is already a done deal. Omono-sensei, serve you right. It wouldn't be fair if only I had to suffer. Ario-sensei clapped her hands with a ghostly expression, envious of the living. Are you going to be confined again? Konata whispered in a volume low enough that only I could hear. No, I guess not. You'll probably be busy too, and I don't want to rely on confinement so easily. Well, in this case, I guess I'll have to rely on divine intervention. I joked in a light-hearted tone. That's not allowed. Shrines are places to report and express gratitude to the gods for our daily lives, not to make requests. It's disrespectful to come here only for Hatsumode and make wishes, especially if it's not a shrine you regularly visit. Konata corrected with a rather firm tone. That's right. Exactly. Even though you're young, you understand the etiquette so well. Impressive. The spirit of respecting the gods without relying on them is crucial. Ario-sensei tried to pat Konata's head but couldn't reach, resulting in an awkward gesture. But I do like the local deities whose origins are shrouded in mystery and directly related to worldly benefits. Konata muttered quietly. I totally get that. I'm all about those nameless, obscure gods. They're super cool. Ario-sensei enthusiastically agreed. Indeed, ancient history has a certain mysterious charm. There must be a reason why the location of Yamatai-koku is still a topic of debate. Yamatai or Yamatai-koku is the Sino-Japanese name of an ancient country in WA during the late Yayoi period. Haruka-san nodded thoughtfully. The three of them found common ground on some obscure points. With all this conversation, we casually merged into the line for shrine visitation. We waited for quite some time, chatting and laughing along the way, and before we knew it, our turn had come. Naturally, everyone fell silent. Konata and I released each other's hands. All of us bowed slightly in front of the offertory box. Each one of us took out our wallets and approached. Ario-sensei confidently took a white envelope from her long wallet and placed it in the offertory box. If it was in an envelope, it probably didn't just contain a single bill. Most likely, it included money for her assistants as well. Haruka-san, without tossing in a 500 yen coin, gently and carefully slid her offering into the offertory box. Since she visited regularly, there was no need to show off with a larger donation just for Hatsumode. As for me, I put in a 5,000 yen bill. It was combined with Konata's contribution. Compared to a Ryo-sensei, it probably seemed like a much smaller amount, but I felt like I was already going all out. First, 2 bows. I closed my eyes. And then, 2 claps. Is this where we greet the gods? What should I say? No, I don't need to think about it. The gods see everything, so I should just speak honestly and say what's on my mind. Hello, God. Good morning. Thank you for always taking care of me. My name is Omona Kimito. I'm a manga artist. I probably don't have much talent, so I wanted to rely on your divine help, but it seems that's not the right way, so I'll stop. Instead, I'll report to you. It's been about 3 years since I last visited a shrine. I apologize for my lack of faith. But over these 3 years, I've been so busy that I couldn't come to you, and many things have happened. 3 years ago, I was in bad shape, both as a manga artist and as a person. However, an unfamiliar high school girl kidnapped me and saved me. I know it sounds contradictory to say she kidnapped and saved me, but it's the truth, and I can't help it. Thanks to her, I am still a manga artist today. That high school girl is no longer a stranger. In a few months, she won't be a high school girl anymore. And it seems she wants to become my new partner. She's awkward, quite strange, but incredibly hardworking, very kind, and sometimes a little fragile, but she's such a good girl that I can't just leave her alone. So, I hope she finds happiness. Well, when I say hope, I don't mean that I want you to do something about it. This is just my declaration of intent, so please don't mind. Thank you very much for always watching over us. Please continue to do so this year. Thank you. I bowed once. I opened my eyes. Haruka-san had already turned and started walking toward the torii gate. Ryo-sensei was excitedly drawing omikuji with her assistants in the shrine office. As for Konata, I glanced to my side. She was still closing her eyes, her hands pressed together. It seems like she has a lot to report, even more than I do. Eventually, she'll open her eyes. And when she does, what should I say? Should I ask if she wants to draw omikuji or buy an amulet? Or maybe discuss what we should have for lunch today? The wind blew. In the right hand that was connected to Konata just moments ago, I reached into the pocket of my down jacket. There was a solid feeling under my fingertips. What's this? Ah, toy handcuffs. I must have forgotten to throw them away. They broke at the skate park and I brought them back home, but then I just left them in my pocket. Well, I don't need these anymore. I walked towards a trash can in the shrine grounds, keeping Konata in the corner of my vision. You can't put handcuffs on someone's heart. My confinement, which started with a rigid metal collar, was already a distant memory. It had turned into toy handcuffs, and now even those had become garbage. My relationship with Konata will continue to evolve. It's a bit scary, but it's many times more exciting than that. I look up to the sky. The sky is clear, free from any constraints. Afterword from the author. In the 3rd volume, time has advanced rapidly, and I believe the relationship between the protagonist and myself has become much deeper. I hope you enjoyed it. If the future of the 2 characters turns out to be very fortunate, and if this work becomes something that readers can pray for, it would be an unexpected joy for me as the author. Now, usually, I would move on to expressing my gratitude here, but since this is the final volume, please allow me to speak a little longer. In this work, kidnapping is included in the title and has become one of the themes. When you hear kidnapping, you probably imagine shocking, unique, and extraordinary situations. In reality, I do too, and I have depicted scenes that appear that way in the story. However, as I worked on the series until the final volume, I began to think that perhaps we might be engaging in behavior that is similar to kidnapping without even realizing it in our daily lives. Of course, physically restraining and confining someone with chains or handcuffs is a crime. Therefore, knowing this, we tend to use more subtle, invisible means to bind the relationships. This can be seen in societal norms like parents should love their children, and children should respect their parents, and be kind to your neighbors, It can also manifest on a personal level, with thoughts like I owe a debt to that person, so I can't go against them, or that girl is out of my league, so we're not a good match. These kinds of beliefs, some of which may sound familiar, exist around us like the air we breathe. I'm not saying that these values are necessarily wrong, but I wonder if the beliefs we unquestionably hold and use as the basis for our actions truly originate from our own hearts or if they are the results of societal conditioning. It may not be so clear-cut that they exclusively come from the former. If that's the case, then perhaps we unconsciously or consciously bind our own hearts with a sense of correctness given to us by someone else. We use this correctness to bind others, mutually restraining each other's hearts, and we call this connections between people. In terms of robbing one's mental freedom, it may be more insidious than mere physical confinement. Needless to say, conventional kidnapping, as generally understood, is not something to be condoned, as it often involves physical harm and psychological coercion in most cases. However, the direct threats in this confinement, while subjectively evaluated by the protagonist, are primarily used as a means to maintain his health and hygiene. I had the desire for the protagonist to draw manga for me, and while I may have guided him in that direction, I didn't use force. It was simply a pure wish. Initially, I was clumsy and nervous, and verbal communication was insufficient. But because of this, and it may sound contradictory, I believe that a form of freedom in captivity was established. However, relationships between people are ever-changing. By the time we reached this final volume, our mutual understanding had deepened, and the two of us had become capable of communicating effectively through words without the need for confinement. At first glance, this may seem like an entirely positive development. However, perhaps as a result of this, the relationship between the two of them may have become more restrictive than it was during the time when their connection could only be established through confinement. This is because words can sometimes lead to lies, even without the speaker realizing it. What was conveyed through silent confinement may no longer be communicated when replaced by a back and forth of words. I believe such a time will inevitably come. Nevertheless, even if that happens, I am confident that the two of them will never be separated. Ordinary human relationships begin with words, they may falter due to words, and they often end with words. Once they end, repairing them can be quite challenging. However, the relationship between the two that began with an unconventional form of confinement is not necessarily bound by communication through words. So, when they inevitably find themselves at an impasse, I'm sure the two of them will once again not rely solely on words but take unconventional actions to resolve the situation. It may be a means that might raise eyebrows when viewed by outsiders, much like confinement, but it is undoubtedly something necessary for them. I believe that the two of them, who are both incredibly awkward and equally serious, have the determination to carry out what is necessary without being swayed by the noise of their surroundings. With that said, I have written various things in a somewhat pushy manner, but thank you for reading. End of Volume 3. Story completed.